Well, this is going to be fun. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal phone-in show. Joining you this evening on August 30th, the day where dreams are made, as Arsenal enter the final minutes and seconds of this year's summer transfer window. And thus far, we've signed no one. Not even a backup goalkeeper yet, although there is an expectation, of course, that Neto, the Bournemouth goalkeeper, will be becoming a brand new Arsenal player. In fact, there's been leaks of images of him already having signed and done his media, yet we're not seeing it across the Arsenal website or Twitter feeds or anything like that yet. So that could get confirmed while we're live. Welcome to those joining us live in the chat box. Welcome to those listening on audio platforms. You know a phone-in's going to be good when I already have a full board of people waiting to call in, which has never happened before, which must mean that everyone's really happy and positive and can't wait to tell me why they love the club and they do. So I'm looking forward to those conversations. This, of course, is a phone-in show. Just to give you the rules, you must be over the age of 18. Previously, what we have done, if you are under the age of 18, obviously if you're able to give a parent's consent to come on. However, because of the franticness of this show, we're not going to be doing that this evening. So sadly, if you are under the age of 18, you are going to have to miss out on calling in, I'm afraid. But of course, we will be taking comments from the chat box and we will be doing that. It's just because of the franticness and the chaos of this show. So sadly, if you're under the age of 18, you won't be able to call in and we will need obvious. I'll be making judgments, basically, and it'll be completely non-discriminatory and just up to my own discretion, basically. So, yeah, apologies for that. It's just because of the chaos and the franticness and the hecticness of course, deadline day. What I thought I would do is kind of give where my head's at as of 7 o'clock on deadline day evening. And then we're going to open up the phone lines are open. The link is in the chat box. The link is in the description. It's already quite busy. So it may be that at some point you can't actually join because at a certain point it gets to like a max capacity in StreamYard. But if you finish your call, please leave the StreamYard so it opens up a slot for somebody else to jump in. But I want to hear a variety of opinions. That's what this is about. This is about hearing your thoughts, of course, respectfully, as always. If you're not, you'll be gone. It's quite as simple as that. But as long as it's respectful, that's all I'm asking for. I'm asking for views of a variety of different positions and points of views on this transfer window, and I want to hear how you're feeling. Just to give you kind of my position, I'm not feeling good. I'm really disappointed. I'm gutted. Sorry, that we're in this position where we're kind of scrambling around to try and find that forward that we all know that we need. And I think that it is a failure of that position to not sign one. We've done some good things, but my goodness me, have we been hit with a hammer blow today as well in the news that Mikel Merino has got a potential fractured shoulder, which Arteta said in his press conference would be a few weeks. I'm here to tell you that a fractured shoulder is far worse than a few weeks. These can be very serious injuries. And so I don't want to get people's hopes up. I don't want to give you false hope. And I want to be very blunt with you as to that injury is really annoying and such poor luck. It feels like timber all over again, but to a lesser degree and not as serious as that. But we'll wait for further clarification on the Merino injury and to find out what's going on with that. There's already nearly 1,000 of you listening, which 4 minutes into a phone-in show is great. Apologies for there being no 8 a.m. show this morning. I was working and doing, because there's so much to write about on an Arsenal deadline day, obviously. And so sorry for that. But they'll be back to the usual 8 a.m. madness tomorrow morning. And of course, with it being the end of the transfer window, it will be the Arsenal news show that takes over from tomorrow. But I feel like I've vamped enough. And I feel like what we are going to continue with is a 3-hour phone-in show. We're going to be alive until 10 o'clock tonight, which is an hour, of course, before the deadline closes. We should know by 10 the gist of what's going on. Things can change. Things can happen between now and 10 o'clock. Arsenal can still believe it or not, actually do something in this time. Whether they will or not, we will discover that as the evening goes on. But if we, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to stop talking and allow our guests to talk as we go through this. But yes, just rules again, 18 plus. Make sure that you're in a quiet place to record. Make sure if you've got a microphone, headphones, they're the best things to use. They give you the best results in terms of audio. If it's not good audio, I will have to move on to the next guest. We're going to be ruthless. So just bear that in mind. Right. I'm going to go in the order that people joined. Down below me, I've got the order as to how people joined up. So it'll be first come, first serve. So Fooda is managed to get in first. So let's talk to them. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Hi, I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm loving the Tash, by the way.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
It's a shame that Arsenal's window is not as good as that. But yeah, tell me how you're feeling, my friend.
Honestly, I'm not disappointed. I was just talking in the chat right before we started. And I don't know, with the amount of goals that we scored last season, everyone's begging for a striker. And I mean, I've been listening to your podcast for the past month, and you just keep repeating the same thing. Who would that striker be?
Yeah.
There's no one on the market right now that moves me enough to the point where I'm like, yes, that'll be the person that scores our goals. That'll be the main outlet. I'm not fully disappointed. Obviously, we could have gotten someone, and it's not over yet, but maybe,
It's the hope that kills you, man. I appreciate it. I think that's going to be, I'm only extrapolating here because you're the first caller. I think that's going to be an unpopular point of view, to be honest. But I think that the measured approach is something that we may see with other callers this evening. Without bringing her forward, and I should let people know that there is some rumours going around at the moment that Reiss Nelson could yet still leave the club in the hours that remain, which from my perspective would be ridiculous if we don't bring in a forward to let him go. The forward area at the moment consists of Kai Havertz, an injured Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, Leandro Trossard, and a potentially leaving Reiss Nelson. Why shouldn't fans feel that they have a very strong right to criticise Edu and the club with just those available for a very important season?
Okay, so if Nelson leaves, yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
because we definitely need that rotation. However, I feel like I personally have been watching since like around 2017.
Thanks, man.
I just we have gone through so much, and I just think that I personally trust Arteta and Edu with almost everything they do. They really have not given us a full reason to not trust them. So if they feel that this squad is ready, if they feel that this squad is to the point where an injury won't fully end the season, then yeah, I'm down with whatever they do.
Fair. I mean, I think that's a perspective that a lot of people hold, is that they have to this point earned people's trust, and the work that's been done to take the club from where it was when Edu and Arteta first came together to work on this project to where we are now has given people, plenty of reason to hold that point of view. But I do think that there is going to be a significant amount of pushback throughout the evening on that. But Fooda, thank you for kicking off the show. And
thank you so much.
It might end up be a balancing viewpoint we look back on in 3 hours' time, and you may be a lonely voice, but you're the first one. So that's great. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time. Thank you, mate. Lovely stuff. That's our first caller out the way. Not controversial at all. Let's move forward. And Kyle is our next caller. I always like to say the name first, because what tends to happen is that if I bring you on and then say your name, you get scared. And I actually saw you go, "Oh no, it's me." So tell me, Kyle, where your head's at, mate.
You can hear me all right?
I can, mate. Perfect.
I think it's been, hasn't been the best window, but it hasn't been a horrible window.
I'm really surprised by this, but yeah, go on, keep going. Explain your point.
People forget that we had to get Raya over the line, and we also got Moreno over the line. And we got two signings. That's better than Liverpool have done first off, so we have to take that into consideration. And we've also had other, that's been about it. But one thing I would have liked to see us do was maybe go more in the youth route with signing South American talents and having them on loan for a year or so.
I think what we have done prior to losing, obviously, Moreno, which is just so gutting. Like, I can't. When that news came through, obviously there was leaks before the press conference, and then Arteta confirmed what was even worse than I was expecting. I was expecting, he's got like a minor knock or something, to find out that he's got, such a horrific injury that I could never have anticipated. And obviously it happened in training with Gabriel landing on the poor guy, is really frustrating. So I don't think what I think is going to become a theme this evening, Carl, is I think that a lot of people are going to maybe use the injury as something to beat the club with. I'm not going to do that because I don't think that's fair, because an injury that happens with hours left of the window after we've invested in it, you just can't quantify that happening. But what we can quantify happening is a Jesus injury, is potentially a Saka knock with the amount of kicks he gets. With Havertz, who knows what happens with any of the other forwards. Martinelli has had, Trossard has had injury issues as well. If any of them go out, we're very thin. So why haven't the club signed somebody?
I think you bring a great point there, but it's also the fact that maybe there isn't that key target out there. Like you said before, there isn't that Declan Rice type signing that the club have identified in previous windows and then said, I want this player now. And the only one that's really been there was Raya, but he was with us last year. And then Miguel Moreno. Arteta's been a big fan of him for a while now. So there hasn't been that in-depth research in one specific player that they all want at the same time, is what I think.
And I think that's probably what they would say if you asked them, is that they felt that the option isn't there. That they are willing to jump on as we speak at 7:12 this evening, of course. Carl, thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carl. Lovely stuff. Stephen's up next. Let's go to Stephen. How you doing, Stephen? You good, Joel?
I'm good, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can just about. Maybe select the microphone. It might be not selected. Stephen, I'll come back to you in a second once you've sorted out. Okay, mate? No problem. You will get back on. Let's go to Jack, who's up next then. Jack, if he's ready. Jack, how you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Hello, mate. Yeah, good. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfectly well.
Brilliant.
Yes. Tell me where your head's at. Nice shirt, by the way.
Thank you. I'm not gutted.
Right.
I feel like this is actually going to be like a common answer. I think everyone's.
I'm really surprised. That's 3 callers in a row who aren't gutted. Yeah.
If you look at our outgoings and you look at our incomings, I'd say we pretty much broken even. I mean, 35 for Smith Rowe, I think it was 30 for Eddie, 15 for Ramsdale, and then obviously getting Calafiori and Miguel Moreno in, give or take, we've broken even. And are you telling me that a club that finished second in the league progressed in the Champions League with a decent financial backing, but we don't have money left to spend? I think that there could be something hiding in the final few hours. And it's maybe
the danger of us doing this now is we don't know.
Maybe delusion in me, but that mystery German player that was
God, not the mystery German player. Oh no,
German player. You never know. But I could see something happening, and read an article the other day where Kroenke said that he loves the idea of all this excitement in the final day, in the final few hours, and whether this is something that the club are internally planning, keeping it all as quiet as they can to just excite the fan base. That'd be brilliant. My only issue is how has Fabrizio, David Ornstein, other journalists not picked something up yet? That's my sort of only concern. Where I'd strengthen the team, I don't think we need a number 9. I'm quite happy with Havertz. Possibly bring in sort of a cheaper alternative, someone who can cover or promote someone from the youth. I'd want backup for Saka. I mean, as mentioned earlier, Jesus being so injury prone, having his backup as Reece Nelson, with a possibility he leaves as well. I'm not too fond of that idea, but I do feel like we could. Well, Arsenal, that sometimes we get those desperate panic buys. A release clause could be paid, and I don't like the idea of that because typically it will be so much more than.
Of course. Well, that's why they've not gone for Joan Garcia, because I feel as though, and a few people DM'd me throughout the day saying, why would you agree terms with a goalkeeper that you weren't then going to activate the release clause off? Which I think is a fair question to ask. And I think the answer to the question is, I think that Arsenal expected that once they'd agreed terms with Jean Garcia, that when Ramsdale eventually went, which obviously has occurred very late, in fact, he's gone on deadline day officially, that Espanyol, with him agreeing terms, that would help them, that would help Arsenal in terms of trying to convince them, look, your player wants to go, he wants to join us, we want to do a deal, but the release clause is way above his market value. We're giving you an offer of 20 million euros plus add-ons, which is, to be honest, also above his market value. But they've stood firm, to be fair to them. You have to respect it. We've stood firm on Nketiah, so it's the same thing the other way around. And we've moved for who is in Neto the next best option. I mean, for me, Neto is he's a decent keeper. Like it's a number 2. I've had people say to me that he's not good enough and that it's a worry. I've spoken to people that watch Neto. I did an article on it earlier, speaking to somebody who watches the guy week in, week out. And there are concerns. His crossing presence in the box isn't the best, but he is an excellent shot stopper. And when it comes to backup keepers, unless you are going to go and spend 25 million quid, which I think personally would have been a mistake on a keeper that's going to be, 2 years at Arsenal and then might leave because he's not got enough appearances for less money than we bought him. I'm struggling with that. But what do you see about the Neto thing just before you go, Jack?
I mean, obviously anything as a backup to Ramsdale is a downgrade, pretty much.
Cool. Yeah.
But as a backup keeper, you don't want to be investing that much money in. I think a loan move for Neto, brilliant decision. It's not financially heavy for us. He's a Premier League proven goalkeeper. And worst case scenario, Raya does get injured. We've also got Tommy Setford we brung in, who I appreciate is young, but he's still an alternative option that might have a lot to prove for the academy this season. I mean, you've seen players break out of Hale End and have had fantastic games for us. I think, loan move is definitely financially smart, and it shows that we do have that money to spend. And I am gonna cross my fingers and I am gonna hope. But even if we don't get anything through the line and we find 4 hours, just under.
Yeah, just under.
I'm still relatively happy with the window.
Okay.
A backup for Saka would be nice, but we've got defensive depth. We've got midfield depth now, and an attacker would be nice, but it's not the end of the world. And I think we can still progress really far, and I can see big things coming from us this team this season.
Jack, I appreciate your call, and I think clearly I've underestimated how many people feel the same way, because I was really expecting a lot more. I imagine we will eventually get to people that are much more. But Jack, your input's been fantastic, so thank you, mate.
Brilliant, thank you, mate. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too, Jack. Enjoy your evening. Hopefully it's enjoyable with a signing. I saw this comment in the chat box, just want to highlight. Where has it gone? Jerome says, what Arsenal has done is like knowing you have a flat tyre, but you decided to replace the bumper. I think I'd use the analogy slightly differently. I think what Arsenal has done is like knowing that your spare tyre is flat and haven't replaced the spare. That's how I feel about Arsenal's forward line. Like, we have a fit forward line of Havertz, Martinelli and Saka or Trossard thrown into that. But the spare wheel in Jesus is currently flat, and we haven't added a new forward option. So I'd slightly tweak your analogy, Jerome, but I think that's probably where it's coming from. Just to address Bill's super chat as well. Thank you, Bill, for the kind donation. Whilst I'm disappointed in the squad depth, I believe the club will be back in for Benjamin Šeško next summer. Everyone laughs at Chelsea, but then moans when we don't spend like them. The Chelsea example makes sense in certain contexts. It doesn't necessarily, for me, make sense when all we need is that. Not all we need, but certainly what we definitely need was a forward. Chelsea don't need another forward. It looks like they might be getting Jadon Sancho. Helgi is up next in our lists. Hopefully he's ready. Sorry, Helgi. I am going to pause you just a second because I did promise Stephen that I'd bring him back in straight away, and that's my memory. So we'll come to you after that. Stephen, let's see if he's ready. How are you doing, Stephen?
Hello, can you hear me? Does that sound better? Let's go.
We can hear you. Perfect. Tell me what you're thinking, mate.
I actually think it's been a pretty good window, to be honest with you.
Crazy. I can't believe how many people. You know what's really funny though, Stephen, is whenever anyone replies that, there's other people waiting in the queue that do this.
Yeah.
So I know that it's coming. I know that it's coming further down the line. So tell me, Stephen.
I really did think I was going to be in a minority, but I think we've addressed 3 of the key areas in the pitch. So we've sorted out the goalkeeping situation finally. Raya is now permanent. He's already proven that we were already expecting it, but he's already proven he's worth the money. I mean, he saved that brilliant save against Wolves to keep it at 1-0. Yeah. Also the brilliant save against Aston Villa gets us the points there as well potentially. We now have a goalkeeper that knows he's the number 2. So like the whole Aaron Ramsdale thing is finally resolved. Hopefully Aaron now can go on and do well for himself. We've addressed the defence. We've got Timber coming back. Obviously, the addition of Calafiori. I can't say that I'm an expert on Calafiori, but
I don't think any Arsenal fan really is.
Yeah, exactly. But from what I saw from the Euros and what I'm hearing about him, he looked pretty good. That assist was really really good. And Moreno, I mean, it makes sense. The Moreno signing. His stats, I think he won the most duels in Europe last season. He is excellent when it comes to aerial duels. He adds something else to the midfield. It's just unfortunate today he's picked up the injury. But Edu, nobody can predict that. It just seems like a freak thing.
Of course, I don't think I won't have it. I mean, they can bring it up if they like, a caller about Moreno's injury, but there is no a way of knowing that's going to happen. So yeah, of course.
Exactly. Obviously, the massive criticism is that we should have brought in a forward. I think every Arsenal fan wanted a forward of some description going into the window, whether you believe that was a striker or as a winger. I tend to lean more towards the winger as a backup for Saka. It just seems like we were definitely in at one point for a forward, because obviously we were one of the first names we were linked with was Sesko. But since then, we've not really been linked. It kind of seemed like we were all in on Nico Williams. Mm-hmm. He was it seemed like he was the guy, and if he came up, then we were going to go, and that was. But from the Nico Williams perspective, I don't even think we were the first choice if he left Bilbao.
No, Barcelona was.
Exactly, yeah. So I must say, I do feel like Liverpool got the steal of the window with Chiesa. I think Chiesa for £15 million or euros. I think he comes into the Arsenal team, 26 years old. He's got a wealth of experience. He's a Euros winner. Okay, you can argue about his injuries, but ultimately, in a team he's not going to start every week, that might be a bit more manageable. Plus, I think he has the attributes to make a real impact from the bench as well. So if Saka needs to come off with 60 minutes played or 65 minutes played, he's looking a bit tired. He has that injection of pace on the wing. And I really feel like he could have been a great signing for us. I really do.
Yeah, I think that Arsenal had two clear and obvious targets. I think Šeško was one. It never got to an advanced stage because his ambition seemingly was to always stay with Leipzig for another season. And Williams, as you rightly brought up, was the other one. It just seems that there's been a lack of willingness to move for alternatives to those two. There's also been a lack of willingness to do much business until they get money in for other players that they wanted to move on, which has caused us to leave any potential business that we would do to very late. And I think that is, if there is a mistake this window, I think that is potentially the mistake. I'll talk a little bit more about it shortly, but Stephen, thank you so much for your contribution. It was brave, it seems, but not so brave as the theme of the show's been so far. So thank you, mate.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm glad we sorted the audio issues out as well. Just on that, just to kind of, I put a tweet out earlier on just to kind of give you a little more context of where my head's at on this. I put a tweet out saying deadline day is heading towards its conclusion and Arsenal are yet to add what to me is a necessity in a forward player. I don't think anyone can criticise Arsenal for a lack of wanting to strengthen, because I think it's obvious that they did want to strengthen. But I think what we can criticise Arsenal for is this surplus of restraint, is what I'd describe it as. There seems to be an unnecessary level of restraint when it comes to wanting to go to somebody else as opposed to not our primary targets in this particular window. Whereas in other windows, we've obviously pivoted to Zinchenko or to Trossard or to Jorginho relatively quickly. But in this window, there's been a real restraint in pivoting to a different target to the point where we may not end up getting any alternative that could end up costing us. And that's what I think we can, point the finger and somewhat say, I don't really agree with that policy. But we'll see what the rest of our listeners think. By the way, guys, there's a couple of people obviously that have been on already that are still in the call. Make sure once you've finished, you hop out to let other people jump into the StreamYard space. Thanks, guys. Helgi is up next, as I promised. How you doing, mate? You good, you well?
Yeah, I'm doing good. And you?
Good stuff. Yeah, remind me where you're calling in from again?
Iceland.
Fantastic. Is it cold? I feel like that's a rhetorical question, to be honest.
I mean, it's starting to kick in. So
starting to. Well, it's still annoyingly warm here in the UK, and I say that and every time I say anything about moaning about warm weather here, I get people in the comment section absolutely battering for it. So I should probably stop. But Helgi, Where's your head at? Are you in line with what we've heard so far, or are you different?
I mean, I'm kind of conflicted. I'm feeling both. I do feel disappointed. I was reflecting, and first I was like, we're weaker than at the start of last season. But then I also remembered, Timber got injured, and now Marino got injured. So it's maybe we're kind of about the same in terms of squad depth.
Yes.
And I always think it's very easy for us to form strong opinions about what's been happening behind the scenes, but we don't necessarily have all the information on what went down. But how I see it is that, I think Arteta and Edu probably just got really fed up with gap fillers. I think they just were in this whole situations of paying off people's contracts and all this stuff that they probably just decided the only people we're going to get in are people that are here to strengthen the squad in the long term. And even if we suffer in the short term, in the long term, we're going to have a stronger squad, and we're going to have less of this whole thing of having to pay people off and having people around that we can't get rid of and all that stuff. So yeah, that's my intuition about what's been happening.
Yeah. Obviously, I think there's going to be people later on in the show that maybe are really rather irritated by what we have or have not done during this window. What would you say to, in some ways, calm? Because it's not just the people that may call in. There is a trend on social. I mean, you go onto Twitter, which is a dangerous thing to do always. But you go onto social media and there is a real sense of frustration and in some cases real anger. I've seen some unsavory, clashes between supporters in threads and stuff about it. What would you say in some ways if you had to calm a friend of yours down that was in that kind of mindset about it?
I mean,
if you can, and you don't have to.
I don't know if I can. No, it can definitely be overhyped, the negativity around it, but I think it's legitimate that people have concerns as well. But what I would say is that we're at least even in terms of squad depth compared to the beginning of last season. So we made it almost all the way to the end, and I think if we strengthen in January, and this is how I'm calming myself down on this, is that I'm okay. We've set ourselves up to strengthen in January at least, because we've made a lot of money. I think the net spend is 15 million or something like this. Mm-hmm. So it's we have the capacity, but I think it's just a matter of, I think they just want the right people, and I think they would rather have nobody than
which is admirable and has got us to this point. And I've really praised that approach because I think it's led us into a very good area, and it's not led us down a path that Chelsea have followed. And you look at where they are compared to us. But where we are right now is still not quite where we obviously want to be. So if this strategy takes us just this close, but not quite there, then you sometimes maybe have to look back at the strategy and think, what could we have done differently? Now, I'm not there yet, because I think obviously Arsenal can still win the league with what we've got. And I think we showed last season how close we are. And obviously we've already turned around one of those key defeats from last season at the start of this season with that Villa game. So it's just that, I think for a lot of fans, it's just the fear of what if someone gets injured, but also the number of games we've got to play. Can this squad last till at least January? Because I think sometimes people forget the January window exists, but you don't want to be in a position where you're relying on that to be the time to strengthen. And I think that's maybe where there's obviously, again, the frustration. But Helgi, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you for listening and for tuning in and for contributing. Lovely stuff. Pete is our next caller, who has been one of the head scratchers, as others have been speaking. So I am curious, Pete, to know what your thoughts are, my friend.
What's up, Tom? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, my friend. So how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I listen a lot. First of all, I want to thank you for everything you do. You're really good at what you do. Yeah. No, I haven't been scratching my head in disagreement. I think there's been some good points brought up. Honestly, I don't think this window is a failure, although I do think a forward would go a long way for us. I will say, when I think about kind of like the players that were talked about this window, I think Eze would have been a really good fit for this Arsenal squad. And I'll tell you why. I feel like we know we're going to go up against a lot of low blocks this year. That's just going to continue to happen. And I feel like just the qualities that we have on the team are very, very good. But one of the things that could do us a lot of benefit is to have those players that can just operate really, really well in like really tight spaces, burst through that space, get a shot off or pass the ball off to the next player. And I feel like he's a player that can just do that really well. He was a great spark off the bench for England in the Euros this summer. I think he could fill that similar role.
Just to interject quickly, Pete, I've spoken to two people about Eze, just kind of asking why has no one has really pushed for him this window, not City, not Liverpool, nobody. And so I asked a couple of people about Eze. The answer I got back was 100 million is what I got back. So that I think is, and you've seen how they've been with Gerhi and Newcastle, Palace have got the money that they wanted for Elise. And I think that they're looking obviously to build. I think Glasner's a very shrewd manager that's been very forthright when he came into the, taking that Palace job for Glasner was a bit of a risk from a manager point of view. We've seen managers who've done well in Europe, like De Boer, of course, go to Palace and not do particularly great. And I think that he's been very kind of forthright with his views on where he wants to take that Palace project. And part of that is not selling players unless you get absolutely maximum value. So yeah, I agree that Eze would have absolutely added something. I've always questioned maybe the profile fit, but based upon what we look at the squad now, is without a doubt he would have added something. But 100 million is it's a lot of money.
Steep. Yeah, that's steep. I mean, £60 million release clause, that's, I think, worth it. I think 100 million too much. The last thing I'll say is I think when you look at the squad, it's like we finished 2 points off City last year, right? I think you have to start thinking about investments. And I love the way we do business, but I think you do have to start thinking about investments in terms of like what would, if we invest a certain amount of money and it does win us the championship. I'm not saying that not investing wouldn't win us the championship, but if it does prove to make a difference maker, if it's a player who contributes, 5 to 10 goals that do end up being 3 points that get us the championship, what is that worth? Like because we're that good. So I think we have to sometimes think in that way. And I think one example for this year could be Neto. I mean, Pedro Neto.
We got to differentiate now between Neto.
Pedro Neto. Like, I think time will tell if that was a good purchase for Chelsea. Obviously, he has a big injury history. It's a huge gamble. I don't know that personally I would have been up for making that gamble, but like if he does pan out this year, if he doesn't get hurt, if he has a good season, if he has 10, 15 goal contributions, that could be a difference maker type player, And so for £60 million, I feel like that's a worthy investment for a club in the position that Arsenal's in today.
Yeah, no, I think you've raised really good points about that. And it is, I think the general consensus will be we feel like we're a forward sure. I know there's some people that think that we should have added more, but we just feel like we're that attacking option, short of where we probably should have been. How, just quickly before you go, Pete, how do you feel about kind of the club's strategy of if it's not the main guy, which this window, as we discussed, clearly was Šeško and Williams, if they can't get their number one, that they've felt that the market's not been good enough to get the number two, or if that even existed?
It's hard to say without knowing who the number two is, Tom. I mean, one of the things that's in the back of my head is like you look around, there's a lot of squad bloat in Europe right now. Like you look at Real Madrid, right? And you say like, for how long will that last? For how long will all of those guys be happy on that squad with the limited minutes that are going to be available to all those world-class players? You know what I mean? And I think maybe Arteta and Edu are thinking there's teams out there like Chelsea, like Real Madrid, that are sitting on players that are at one point gonna want minutes, gonna want to go somewhere and get minutes. And maybe they're waiting for that opportunity to pop up. Without knowing who's on the list, I think it's hard to say how much of a drop-off there is between the number one and the number two. I have full confidence in Edu and Arteta. They've taken us this far. I think they're going to take us to the promised land. I've never felt better about, two guys making these decisions at the club. So, I mean, maybe with the, maybe outside of Wenger, obviously, but like they're putting us in a very strong position. And I think you often say when we look around at the other clubs in the Prem, I wouldn't want to trade places with anybody else, even City for that matter, just given like the aging squad and the age of our squad. Yeah. So
and the squad, I know what you mean. I saw a graphic someone put up of like Arsenal's front forward options, Liverpool's forward options, and City's forward options. The caption was something like, "How can we expect to compete with them?" And I was in my head, I was thinking, well, first thing I thought was, well, we beat Liverpool last season in terms of points, and secondly, they've only added Chiesa to it, who obviously is a big question mark. And secondly, like we only finished 2 points off City last season, who have lost Julian Alvarez, who scored 20 plus goals, I think it was last season, and they've obviously replaced him with a very talented kid in Savinho, and Gundogan is also back.
And we took 4 points off them, and we took the 4 points off them.
I think that people underrate our players, mate. I really do.
We've already done it. Like we went toe to toe with Bayern last year in Champions League. Obviously, I think that left hand side did us in that matchup, but we played really well last year. I mean, we were a top club in Europe. Like we should be excited about the season. Last thing I'll say for real is January is always a window, but like you said, there's no telling what's available. I just feel like it's generally harder to do business in January. So it's always better when we can go into the season feeling like, this is the squad that's going to take us to the promised land,
Which sadly we may not even be able to do even if we got the players we wanted, because one of them's gone and potentially got a really bad, serious shoulder injury in Moreno. So that sucks. But what doesn't suck is your contribution, Pete. It was fantastic. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it, man. Have a great one.
You too, mate. Enjoy the rest of your day. Lovely stuff. I keep ending these calls by saying enjoy the rest of your day, in the complete and utter knowledge that it's all predicated on what Arsenal do in the next 3 hours. So I'm hoping that Arsenal deliver for you all. Up next is Bill, if he's ready. How are you doing, Bill? You good? You well?
I'm doing well, Tom. How are you?
Good. You're in darkness, it seems.
Am I? I think it's because the light is in the back and there's
desk as well. That's quite. I've been going back and forth about whether to get. Is it worth it? A standing desk?
It's been good. I think the next upgrade is going to be like a treadmill under there, so I can get some steps in while I'm working. Because I spend a lot of my time sitting. So
fair play. Yeah, it's definitely a trend. It's like a VPN service that could be helpful to you in 2024. It's a necessity. Bill, tell me where your head's at.
I mean, I'm going to be maybe with the majority here that have been on
the majority today, yeah.
But I tend to be positive overall. But yeah, I look at the squad and I see a lot of positives. Obviously, it'd be nice to have that attacker in, but I look at the rest of the window overall and I see, we are now a very lean squad, almost City-like now. There's no Deadwood other than you could maybe call Tierney a bit of Deadwood, but I mean he's here for obvious reasons. If he wasn't injured, he'd be gone.
57th left back.
Exactly. But you look at the squad list and you don't see anyone there who you would be nervous having on the field. And when you're looking to challenge a team like City, that's exactly how they've constructed their squad. Is not the biggest squad, but a squad full of players that you wouldn't hate having on the field. We're not panic buying, and that's something we've done in the past and it's bit us. The signing's not out there, and maybe with the good selling that we've done recently, that sets us up for if there's perhaps a £100 million forward option next season who shows up, we will be financially ready to make that push. So I see this not as a window where we've necessarily made that next step in terms of raising the ceiling, but we've trimmed the deadwood, we've replaced and you could argue we've raised the ceiling even with Calafiori, depending on where we see him playing. So, I mean, obviously, I'm still a bit disappointed that we don't have that attacking option, but I don't see any attacking options out there who are feasible, who would really get me excited.
Let me just interject, Bill, because as you've been speaking, a little bit of developing news just to tempt people maybe is that Alex Crook of TalkSport has just put out a report suggesting that Arsenal and Chelsea are talking about Raheem Sterling in these last. So we know that Sterling has been a name that's been across deadline day. Nothing's really manifested, certainly not on the players' side at the moment. And what we do know is that he needs to move on because he's not in Enzo Maresca's plans. He's on a big wage that Chelsea would rather not have. And of course, Chelsea would like to bring in another forward in terms of Jadon Sancho as well, it seems, too. So Sterling's name is if there is going to be a deal, Bill, I'll be honest with you, I feel like the only deal that is possible would be Sterling at this stage. So tell me where your head is at with the idea of Sterling at Arsenal this season.
So I think it'd be better than nothing. Obviously, it depends on the deal. Like, he is on astronomical wages for what he has contributed to Chelsea. So if we're signing him permanently, that would be a little concerning for me. Unless it's a very short term,
I imagine from what's being talked about, it's a loan deal that would be discussed.
That I would absolutely be on board for. Like, it's next to no risk for us. I mean, even if we're covering, half of his wages or a little more than that, that's fine. I think it'd be a win for pretty much all involved. Chelsea get him off the books for a little bit, and we get that right-sided cover. I think that's the best option that we could go with right now, especially if it's a loan.
I'd still be surprised if it happens, just for the record. I still think it's kind of very much leaning towards the not happening, but it is still, it's brewing is the feeling. I don't want to give people false hope. I want to make that very clear. But these reports obviously are coming out suggesting that there is activity on that potential front just to see. And I expected that this, if it was going to happen, would go down to the deadline because they're two clubs that are going to be very shrewd in what they're trying to do. Bluffs will be playing, being played against one another. We know that Sterling would move. We know Chelsea want to move him out. We know that Arsenal want a forward. So all of that combined, you'd think would lead you there, but I'm intrigued. But Bill, yes, I appreciate your first your patience and secondly your input. It was fantastic. Thank you again.
Of course, always love coming on, Tom.
We love having you, Bill. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Lovely stuff. Let's go to Bobby, who's up next. Bobby, how you doing, mate? You good, you well?
Very well, Tom. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. I mean, I could be better, but that's predicated on what happens in the next 3 hours and 15 minutes. But what about you?
Depending on Sterling coming through, I think that really changes the window's outlook, to be honest. So we've got to look at things. Obviously, the main factor is we've got a much leaner squad. There's more games. Definitively, there's more games. And even if you look at our first cup tie with Bolton, there's going to be a larger cup run in tournaments this year. So I think that's one thing we're really geared up for this year in terms of longer cup runs. So how are we going to manage that with a leaner squad? That's my question mark. Am I throwing a panic? Not at all. Because I think when we spoke last time, I said to you, I don't feel like we need reinforcements. I said, I think you've been a bit hasty asking for another striker because City weren't going to sign one, and they didn't. And City are a lot less for cover than we have. But just in terms of if I had confidence that Reece Nelson would start when Saka's injured, and I've seen enough of Reece Nelson throughout the years to feel that he's sufficient cover, then that's a different question mark. It doesn't mean that he's not, but we've just not seen it, me, you, or any of the fan base, because he's not been given those opportunities. So one of the last criticisms I think everybody gave Arteta last year was the loss of Cheeto. I think if Cheeto had stayed this year, he would have been a lot better lined up for entering a first-team squad if he was good enough with how the squad is shaped up than he would have at Man United. But we've already seen Ethan being promoted, as Nunan being promoted. So we've got to take some optimism out of this. We've got to say, look, there's a youngster burst through. We've got rid of, as much as I'm sad to see him go, Emile Smith-Rowe was definitely injury prone. So if we're saying Pedro Neto's injury prone, and that was a reason we wouldn't go for him, then why would we keep hold of Ethan Emile Smith-Rowe? So there's a lot of players around there that we've got rid of that Arteta didn't have confidence with in terms of an entire squad. So without those players, does that mean he's going to give more of a chance to Reece Nelson, potentially if Sterling comes in? I think that's been a good window. If we get Sterling in, I think that's been a really good window.
Yeah, I think that I don't know if I'd go as far as saying it's really good. I think if we got Sterling in, I'd be looking at calling it a solid 7.5. It seems hollow because Marino is injured now. Like in my head, I was like, with Marino, I'm like 6.5, 7. Now he's injured. It's definitely like a 6, 6.5. But I don't feel like that's even fair because he's injured. Oh, we've lost Bobby. Oh, that's a shame. The rating thing's really a strange one. It's so gutting losing Marino. It really, really is. But it's the reality that we are. By the way, I'm just reading through the chat. Obviously, we have our listeners. I'm the multitasking maniac on this show with Googling and reading comments and listening and asking questions to listeners on this. But I've been reading through some of the chat, and as the Sterling news kind of came up and we were talking about it, the amount of people in the chat box that are just like, no, don't accept it. Don't take him. Don't sign him. Like, no. In my head, I'm like, how is anyone in a position to say no to anybody right now? Like, we need a forward. Like, we absolutely need to sign a forward player. And this, by the way, isn't like signing Sterling on a Willian 3-year deal. This is for a loan for a season on a reduced wage packet. That's where I struggle with the whole we're too big for Sterling thing, because no, he's not ideal. No, he's not our first choice. No, he's not the Sterling of Man City. But I struggle with the idea of nobody instead of signing Sterling. I really, really do. Abdo is our next caller, and he's up next in the queue. So let's get Abdo in the show. How you doing, Abdo? You good? You well, mate?
Hey, Tom. How are you?
Very good, my friend. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Tell me where your head's at.
Yes, I don't know what everyone's talking about. I have a little bit of a slightly different view.
Good.
But so I didn't have any expectations. I'm gonna be honest. I had such low expectations going to this window, just because it's because I knew Edu, Edu and Arteta had no clear plan. Last year, it was crystal clear, right? They knew the players they wanted from the very beginning. Before the window even opened up, they knew exactly who they wanted.
That's been the case for the last 4 summers.
Yeah. So they were instantly going in and they're like, okay, this is what we need. This is what we'll do. These are our targets. We're gonna go after these targets and we're gonna make it happen for sure. This year, I was like, they don't know who they want. We all know we need a midfielder and one additional forward player. But I don't think they knew that, or I don't know if they're convinced about that personally. That's just my own personal view of that. Just because I don't feel like, based on last season, they feel like we needed the extra help forward, just because we were able to do so well with, like we pretty much, I think we did at the end of the season, did we outscore Chelsea in terms of goals? I think it was. I mean, sorry, Manchester City, we had a different goal, right? We were, I think, more by like 5 or 6, something like that. But like we outscored them. So I think they, from their perspective, this is just me guessing, is that they didn't think that's what we needed, right? But for me, I'm like, had we had that additional support forward last season, I think we probably would have done it. Now, if Jesus wasn't injury prone, I'd be fine, right? But the guy is getting injured. Like I love him as a player. I think he's I think he gets a lot of unnecessary hate. That's because his injuries are not helping him. Every time he gets back into shape and he's back at like producing results, he just gets injured again.
We didn't outscore City, by the way. Just people are correcting in the chat box. It was by 5. We were short by 5.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Don't let that derail you, but I didn't want you to carry on with that.
I was pretty sure we were ahead of them. Maybe towards the last 2 games is where it kind of slowed down for us.
Oh, it got very close. It was very, very close. They overtook it was goal difference that was very close, and they overtook it towards the end.
Okay. Yeah. So it was towards the end.
Don't let them derail you. Keep going.
But no, it's okay. So yeah, it's definitely something that we needed help. Well, I mean, that's even more reason of why it was clear that we needed help up front. So my perspective here is I went in with low expectations because I knew Arsenal didn't know what they needed. And little did like even though I was let down, I'm still extremely disappointed. Like it's what I was expecting, but I'm extremely disappointed. And I think like going for Sterling towards the end is just annoying me even further because we were put in this situation. Do you know what I mean? Like we should have never been in this situation to begin with. We should have been looking for targets. We should have been trying to target a few targets from the beginning of the window, but that wasn't happening. I didn't see any serious target that they had. Nothing. You can't convince me that there was not a clear player that we can get to help us up, like to help us forward. Like I don't know if if behind the scenes Osimhen was not an option, but like I would have tried to make that happen. Right, I would have tried to go for him, try to just see where the market's going. Like teased it a little bit, kind of thing. But I just think they completely wrote him off. Right, it's they thought about him in January, but then the summer came, and then they just completely wrote him off. So I'm disappointed. I'm not happy. Sterling is just putting like rubber on a Band-Aid, which is kind of annoying me. It's just frustrating like even further. I feel like we should have just went straight. Okay, take the first month, think about the target that you need, and then pursue that target. As soon as the window opens, just take it, right?
I guess the issue is, Abdo, obviously, like I think that Arsenal, the difference, there is a similarity with previous windows and a difference. The similarity with this window is that there were two clear candidates Arsenal saw as forward options, which were Nico Williams and Šeško. The difference with previous windows is those players, unlike Rice, unlike White, unlike Jesus, their priorities were actually staying where they are. Or in the case of Williams, his preference, if he was going to leave, was Barcelona. The difference is, again, with this window, is that the alternatives to our priorities, which in previous windows we've gone to Zini and we've gone to Jorginho and we've gone to Trossard and other examples as well. The difference was that the backups weren't anywhere close to the level of Williams and Šeško in the mind of the club. Like people will say, well, what about Gyökeres? Like what about Osimhen? No, it's not right. It's not great at all. Like, and people will say Gyökeres and they'll say Osimhen, but the club, I mean, look at both of those players. Neither have moved. And we say Osimhen yet. Neither have moved yet. No. Osimhen, of course, may move, but if he does move, it doesn't look like it's going to be. He could even stay at this moment in time. It's not. So do you know what I mean? But just final word on this, like the window obviously hasn't been great, but there is still an argument that we should still have added, still may add, because Sterling is bubbling away. And by the way, just as we're live, more reporters are jumping on this Sterling thing. Nazaire Kinsella at BBC Sport is now reporting this. We're seeing it from Sam C. That's Football is also reporting it. We're seeing it.
This is just reminding me of David Luiz all over again when we got him at the end of the window.
This is better than David Luiz for me.
I mean,
I know where you're cut. There is a very.
It's definitely giving me those vibes. I mean, I'm not saying Sterling is that. But it's just annoying me even further that we were in this spot. Like, I don't know. I feel like we should have been more disciplined. I think what's happening right now is what worked for us in previous years doesn't mean it's going to work for us this year. So we should have shifted, but they didn't shift that. Right, the discipline to shift is not there. They remained insistent on staying consistent with what worked with them previously. Now, that's how I see it. If there were other players in the market that were going to cost them a little bit more, I think Rice proved to them that he was worth his price tag. So it doesn't mean that we can be like Chelsea. We're gonna drop money unnecessary on players and they don't end up producing results. Right. So I think that was one of the things that was also pushing them back a little bit. It kept their hesitation. They didn't want to go and spend too much on Osimhen, which is what I think is what wrote him off initially. That's how I see it. I think it has nothing to do else. It's just money wise, because I don't see any other reason why they wouldn't have pursued him personally. Like if they could have pursued him, they could have worked for it. They could have made it They could have spoke to him, let him know you're the guy that we need. You're the player that we need to take this team to the next step. They could have convinced him, but I don't think they tried any of that personally. Right? That's. I'm just gonna end with that. Again, it's like they did what worked for them in the previous windows. They tried to stick to the same plan instead of shifting gears halfway through. They didn't shift the gear. They just stayed on it, and then they're doing a hesitating final purchase kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and I think that this final purchase, obviously, I don't think it's going to satisfy everybody. I honestly don't, and I'll be intrigued to see if anybody comes on and tries to argue it would be better not to sign anybody than.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like Sterling is better than having no one. But it's just my point is us being like reaching the stage should not have happened personally. But again, like it is what it is. I mean,
just a breaking bit of news for you. David Ornstein has dropped a bomber. Arsenal are in talks with Chelsea to sign Raheem Sterling before the transfer deadline closes. Arsenal are now actively...
Hopefully it's on loan.
Arsenal are now actively working on the 29-year-old Chelsea. If deal is struck, personal terms would still need to be agreed. No issues expected. So we don't... it is a loan, I should stress. It does say in the subheading, Arsenal in talks to sign Raheem Sterling from Chelsea on loan. So that is the situation now. Arsenal are trying to sign Raheem Sterling on loan. Abdul, if indeed Sterling signs, rating of the window out of 10?
5.
5?
It was an initial 2 for me.
Fair enough. Abdul, thank you for your time, mate.
All right,
thanks,
man.
Have a fantastic rest of your day, my friend. Lovely stuff. So, yes, just to round up before we go to our next caller, Arsenal are in discussions with Chelsea over a loan deal for Raheem Sterling. Arsenal are looking to try and do a deal, which I imagine, from what I was hearing earlier when I was on shift, was that the wages, the finances would need to come down from his current Chelsea situation. But we have movement. We don't have liftoff yet, but we have movement, activity. We have certainly something to discuss in terms of a deadline day, or 2 deadline day deals. Also, I did just ask a question about Nketiah to a friend of mine, and their words were, don't know of any issues. So I know there's a few people asking about why isn't Nketiah gone yet. The reply I got was, don't know of any issues at the moment. But yeah, hopefully we get confirmation on Nketiah's sale soon. Because goodness me, if that doesn't happen, the meltdown of all meltdowns will happen. Right, let's go to Simon, who is up next. I'll give him a second to compose himself. Here we go. Simon, how you doing, mate? You good? You well? Take yourself off mute and tell me how you're feeling.
Fuming.
You're fuming,
Yeah, you've actually managed, amazing, Tom. You've actually managed to find the only 8 positive fans on planet Earth on your calling show.
It feels that way, doesn't it? It genuinely makes me feel that way.
I think so. I just don't know what they're thinking, to be honest. But,
fair enough. Yeah, talk to me, mate. Tell me.
Let's just look at this.
Take it as therapy, mate. Tell me your problem.
Of course. Let me just tell you, this is from a macro perspective. Everybody's looking at it from a micro perspective, but I feel like the execution and approach to this window, first and foremost, has failed Mikel Arteta. What he's been able to achieve in the last 2 years has been nothing short of fantastic. I'm a big advocate of him, his work, and what he's done has really brought us everyone together. So how the Cronkies and the club have approached this window and failed to get and convince our number one targets to come to our club has been an epic failure of massive proportions. Don't see Man City failing, but to give Pep Guardiola what he wants with his contract renewal up soon, that's going to have huge implications. If he is a respectable person, I would actually respect that if he was to jump ship and say, well, really? I'll just go to PSG or to Real Madrid because they will back me and give me what I want and be able to execute that.
Simon, what do you think they should have done after they missed out on Williams and Seshko? What do you think they should have done?
I need to ask a question, answer your question with another question, because why did they fail to get Williams, who is at Atletico Bilbao? They're not Real Madrid.
Club. Come on, Simon.
Athletic Club. Sorry, Tom. I know you like your pronunciations done properly of the Spanish league. I'm not quite as well versed as you are to the Spanish league.
I'm being pedantic. God.
Why can't Arsenal Football Club with our might, our tradition, our standing, we got all of this good thing going for a real traditional club. Why can't we convince Nico Williams to leave that club? He's not at Real Madrid. He's not at Barcelona to come to the Premier League, to come to a team that is definitely on the up. It's so evident that we're on the up. We're on the precipice of achieving greatness. Why would he not come? That's the real concerning thing. How can we not convince him to come to our club? How can we not convince Sesko, if that was the challenge, or Osherman or Gokares or whoever it was?
Yeah.
Some of them I'm not even convinced of myself, to come to our great club.
So
we all believe is great.
I guess, Simon, that the answer to that is the same reason we couldn't convince Vlahovic. The same reason.
No, Tom. No.
Let me land. Let me land, Simon. The same reason we couldn't convince Lisandro Martinez. The same reason we couldn't convince Rafinha. The same reason we couldn't convince other targets that we've had in the past that were priorities. Because despite us being fans and supporters of Arsenal Football Club and believing it to be, as the chant goes, the greatest club we've ever seen, it's not that case for all other players. It's not that, and other players are human. You know, they're not names on a computer screen. They are people with their own thoughts, agendas, priorities, principles, preferences. And for Nico Williams, as an example, his preference, if he was to leave Athletic Club, it was always to join. You're getting really irritated, aren't you? To join Barcelona. That was always his number one preference and goal. Like, you got to take sometimes your head as a mindset into the Spanish guy that has looked at Barcelona as the pinnacle of football for him. And he recognized, he's a very smart guy as well, Nico Williams, because not only has he recognized that, yes, I want to go there, but he recognizes that if I go there, I may not get registered, because Barca are in the state that the Barca are in at the moment. They're in such a mess that we don't really know what's going on. So he's thought, I'm going to stay at Athletic Club for another year, continue to raise my stock. I've got a release clause in my contract. If a team want to go and get me, if the team that really want me in terms of Barca want to come and get me, they can come and get me, and I'll wait for them. On Šeško didn't start for Arsenal if he signed at the start of this window. You know, he would have been on the bench. He would have been behind Havertz. And he's thought, it's better for me to stay at Leipzig for another season, start, play week in, week out, and in 2025, leave maybe for Arsenal, maybe for somewhere else. So that's the reasoning by both those players we didn't end up getting this summer. But feel free to come back at me.
Sure. So the Vlahovic thing, the picture changes, just like in football. You go past one player, the picture changes. You go past that player, the picture changes. That was 2 years ago, Tom. We've come a long way since Vlahovic, a long, long way. We probably had Bellerin and Socrates and all that other trash, Holding and everybody else at the club playing games when we was looking at Vlahovic. If I was Vlahovic, I would probably have said no, and I'm an Arsenal fan. So that point, I think it changes since then. We're in a different position. Okay, I get your point on Williams and Šeško, but Tom, there's probably 5 to 10 elite level wingers to improve our team that we could have pivoted to.
Name the 5. You knew that was coming.
Okay, so yeah, sure, 100%. Okay, so let's go. Nico Williams.
No, you can't have Nico Williams. We said other ones.
Okay,
so
okay.
Bakayoko.
Bakayoko,
yes.
No, Barcolo. I don't like Bakayoko.
Oh, Barcola, sorry, the PSG winner.
PSG.
Yes.
Yeah. The Cavacura, whatever his name is. Yes, at Napoli. I knew you'd get the pronunciation right.
I'm here for
so
you.
There's 2. Leroy Sané, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, there's probably not many more on my list.
No, that's fine. Let's focus on the 3.
Putting myself in that spot.
No, it's fine. This is what we're here for, you know, because you're passionate about it, so I'm going to call you on it. Let's talk about those
3. Why can't we get these 3? Or why can't we get these guys out of their clubs to our great club?
Didn't?
Pardon?
I'm going to answer the question that I'm asking to you myself as well. But why do you think we didn't get them?
I don't know if we have PSR issues.
Really.
That within our 3-year rolling period.
Obviously, not really. I'm telling you,
okay.
Not really.
Okay.
Not enough that would stop us getting I'd feel relatively confident that what Bayern would ask for Sané, we'd probably be able to afford. I'd feel fairly confident in that.
Yeah, with Sané and also with his wages as well. I just don't know. I don't think what. So why didn't we get these players? Yeah. I don't know why we didn't get them, to be honest. Like I'm finding it hard. I'm finding it hard for us that we didn't push hard enough. We didn't try hard enough. We didn't offer them enough. We're being cautious in our approach it financially, or what we're offering. We're being a bit stingy. I don't know what it is. Usually, money gets these deals over the line. But when Man City want to go for their players, who we're competing against right now, Tom, how do we get level with them and beyond them to win this league? How do we get level and beyond Real Madrid to win the Champions League? We have to push the boat out financially to make sure that we get these players over the line. How are Chelsea getting all of their targets over the line? They're about to sign Osimhen because we're about to buy Sterling and free up the wages for them to do the Osimhen deal, which is also another reason I'm not particularly happy right now. We're supporting that. But also, the ambition that we're showing. Van Persie left because we wanted to show balance sheets before we showed ambition and trophies. Fabregas left and said exactly the same thing. What about Saliba? What's he thinking tonight? What's Saka thinking tonight? What's Odegaard thinking tonight? These guys all are in 2 years left of their deals next summer. They're talking. There's contract renewals around the corner for these guys. Are they going to be like, well, you didn't really show much ambition this past summer? Then why should I? Why should I?
Why I struggle with that, Simon? I struggle with the whole I know where people come from with that, but it's not like we're not competing for what we're going for. It's not like Arsenal are going backwards. It's not like Arsenal are what we see right now in danger of falling out of the title race. Like Arsenal finished and have finished every season that Saka and Saliba have been here. We have taken a step forwards every single season. I don't think that's up for debate. Like we have always got better every single season they've been here. So they signed their last deals because they saw, they could see the pathway. They could see the project, the process of what Arsenal are looking to do. And I agree with you that if in, 2-3 years time, we're still sitting here, we've not landed a trophy, I'll 100% it's not good enough. I see us this season. If we don't win a trophy this season, it will be a big disappointment. But I'm not quite there with if we don't sign the extra players, that's not going to convince them. And I know that Bukayo Saka said to Gary Cottrell on Sky, who, by the way, has been a legend this deadline day on Sky Sports, doing all the coverage. I know he said, who are we signing? But I'm not sure I'm there, Simon, yet with that.
Yeah, Tom, I understand what you mean. I understand where you're coming from with that. But like I said, with the picture changing, the picture's constantly changing. If Saliba and Saka go through this entire period of this particular contract without any silverware, it's definitely a consideration for them, especially when they've got their mates, Mbappe's, when they're in camp, and Mbappe and Camavinga and Tchouameni are saying to Saliba, come on, look, we just won another Champions League. They just won a Champions League at Real Madrid, their 14th Champions League trophy. I was at Wembley for the game. And then went and signed Kylian Mbappe. We come second for the second.
By the way, got a lower rating than
we come second. I know, but that's over the period of their contract, he's gonna smash it. We come second to arguably the richest team in the world, who's about to do 5p if we don't pull our finger out for 2 years in a row, and then we go and sign Sterling. Where's the joy in that? Where's the positivity? How do I be positive with that movement? Where's the ambition in that? Do
you know why you should be? Positive and happy at the moment, Simon? And we'll finish on this because obviously I've given you a lot of time because you've been a fantastic contributor. That's the reason why I've given you the time. The reason you should be happy right now is obviously looking at the table for a starter, looking at where we have come over the last few years, and looking at how the recruitment and the strategy that has seen us to this point has got us where we are. The window isn't closed, and we may yet add two more, of course, with Neto included in that, which isn't an amazing signing, of course, but it's the signing that we need. And one thing that we also have done this summer that we have not done in previous summers is maximize the value for players leaving the club, which is, again, another encouraging part of the business from this window. I wanted us to do more. I'm with you. I really am. I wanted us to do more, and I'm disappointed that we've not. And I think there should be questions asked why we are here with hours left, scrambling to get Raheem Sterling. You know, I think it's absolutely fair to ask the questions of why we're here. But I don't think that, despite all that, it puts me into such a position where I'm where you are, which is really irate almost of where Arsenal are at, because we have been so good and we have started the season in a fashion by turning around one of those decisive fixtures from last year with Aston Villa last weekend, going into 3 more games, which will give us a lot more information about where we also are, which is why I'd also somewhat be patient with the next 3 games. Because if Arsenal beat Brighton this weekend, which is a tough challenge, they're a good team, and we'll see how that goes tomorrow. But then you've got the North London derby, and then you've got Manchester City. And I say to you, hold your anger and your frustration. Maybe not anger, but anger's probably too far. Hold your apprehension and your angst and your frustration until after the first 5 games. And then if indeed we have bottled it against Spurs and City, then we can definitely have a more in-depth conversation about the failures of the transfer window. I just think that people are underrating how good we are.
Tom, I promise you this, right? I'll give you this. Come 12:30 tomorrow, I'll be in a different mood.
I'm sure you will be.
Back in my team, wholeheartedly. But it's not about the first 5 games. It's what happens when Havertz, who, don't get me wrong, he's a failed experiment. He's done well last season. But what happens when he's injured and then Jesus is injured?
When was the last time Havertz got injured, out of interest? Do you know?
Yeah, okay, maybe not long, but there's always a first, Tom.
Of course there is.
You can't be naive to what. And I'm saying, if it doesn't happen, then yeah, cool. And
what happens if Haaland gets injured for City?
20 goals. If Haaland gets injured for City, Guardiola will have something. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, 100%. They've got rid of
Alvarez. They've not brought in a striker.
I didn't think much of Alvarez myself anyway.
Really? Alvarez is a great player.
I mean, for him to get 90 million for him or whatever they did.
He got consistently over 20 goals, I think, in the 2 seasons that he was there, if I'm not mistaken. The 2 full seasons, I think he got over 20. But they've obviously lost the only natural.
100%. They got big issues not replacing because he had a period of 3 months out injured last year, maybe. So if that happens again, I'll be really worried. To be honest, Tom, I think Man City are gonna come into some trouble with the legal side of the game this season anyway. I'm just I'm so focused on my own club right now rather than thinking about everybody else. And the stuff that we've done. But
thank you.
3 points tomorrow. That's it.
Indeed, absolutely. Yes. I'm only cutting you off because of the time, and it's been a genuine pleasure. And it was nice to get a different point of view as well. I hope that you're less irate than you were when you called in, slightly, percentage even. But thanks, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Keep up the good work. Bye.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Lovely stuff. Just before we go to our next caller, which is going to be Charnor, I'm just going to read out some of the super chats. Mike, thank you so much for coming. I always say becoming a brand new member. I think it's an extension of your current membership. So thank you, Mike, for your support. Greg in the chat says we could have got Pedro Neto or Michael Elise for 50 million. Well, neither of them cost 50 million. Both of them went for more. Pedro Neto was 63 and Elise was, I think, also around 60. Also, it was Bayern Munich. He wanted that Bayern Munich move. And while I would have, if we're sitting here on deadline day, I would have taken him, of course. But at the time we went to Bayern, profile-wise, I've wanted to see a winger come in, and he's more of kind of a wide playmaker to me, is Elise. Neto, £63 million on a player who has notoriously got injured. I think that there's some contradiction there with obviously the viewpoint of Jesus' injuries to then say that Pedro Neto was a no-brainer. So I've got a few issues with that, Greg, but I appreciate the donation and the question. SHU says we have 6 attacking players. It's a normal concuration. I mean, I do love high-level vocab, but goodness me, I'd never heard that term before. Maybe it's a typo, but I can't even find it on Google. So we're learning new words today. And Alex says, I wasn't a fan about hearing of Sterling for cover for Saka. Just wages and no transfer fee sounds like a win to me. Unbeaten so far, 0 conceded. Alex giving us a little bit of context there to Arsenal's season. It is 8:15. I was going to give you a time update earlier on, but we missed it with all the fantastic contribution of Simon. Of course, we are going to be live for another hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, I'm doing that to myself, people. That's how I want to spend my my Friday evening talking to you lot, which is an absolute pleasure. If you are listening and you're enjoying the show, please do, of course, drop a like on the video. There is, for the first time, I think, ever, more people watching on Twitter than there are on YouTube. There's just under 900 of you listening on YouTube. There is nearly 1,500 people listening on Twitter at the moment. Come over to YouTube. Watch us over here. You can get into the chat box and you can join the conversation. So make sure you always watch on YouTube as a primary. But we're going to be doing this all the way through till 10 o'clock at night when we'll have a much, much better picture of the transfer window. Sharnor is up next. How you doing, Sharnor? You good, Joel?
Yeah, I'm good, Tom. I have to say that before we talk about anything football, I just want to say that this is the first time I'm back on your show. And because we have a pretty international audience, I just want to get this out that, I want to congratulate the martyrs who helped bring about change, topple the previous autocratic fascist government that we had, the Awami League in Bangladesh, and now we're reforming under Dr. Yunus. And I just want to say that it's a pleasure to talk from a more democratic, a more free Bangladesh. And I just wanted to say that for the people that have sacrificed their lives for it, I want to give them all my respect and credit. Now, on to Arsenal. I have to say that I've been predicting Sterling would come for the last, week, probably 2 weeks, when there wasn't anything happening in terms of the winger front. I always thought that we'd get the defender because we were short in numbers in terms of defenders last season, and we got lucky with injuries. I knew that the left central mid would come, and Merino did. And then I thought that what do we need in attack? We need pace. We need somebody who's like Martinelli, but with probably Premier League experience. And when you look at Sterling, he fits the bracket. He's got that burst of pace. He's won the Premier League under Pep Guardiola. He's had 20 plus goals and assists seasons under Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. Had 18 goals and assists last season. People forget, they treat him like he's some bum. He's absolutely washed, and that's not true. He's he's been getting output even in a dysfunctional Chelsea. Okay, fine, Cole Palmer's stolen the spotlight there, but Sterling can do a job on both wings and even as a forward with what he's got. So I'm looking forward to that happening. What I do have a qualm about is the signing of Neto. I personally feel that if we were so sure about Garcia and we were willing to stump up 20 million and we knew that his release clause had increased, then why didn't we just, get the deal done earlier before the release clause had increased? Because we knew that we wanted this guy. And now, as much as Neto on paper seems like a very smart deal, it changes our dynamics if and when he has to play. Plus, he's cup tied. So keep in mind, Raya will have to play in the Carabao Cup. So I'm a little worried about that deal. That seems like a bit of an Edu one, a bit of a panic where we didn't get our first choice because we messed up having to wait for a sale. With the other transfers, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like that we've planned what we want to do and how we want to play them. I have one question for you, Tom. Do we know the extent of Merino's injury? I know it's a fracture. I'm hearing 6 weeks.
Well, we don't know it's a fracture yet. Arteta obviously kind of used that word, but I think he used it in kind of estimating terms. So we don't know if it is definitely a fracture. We don't know B, how serious it is. We also don't know which part of the shoulder it is, because if it's like the joint of the shoulder, that's really bad. If it's like the collarbone section of the shoulder, that's much more manageable. So until we get much more detail about it, which we don't have right now, we won't have probably until after the weekend, sadly, it's really hard to speculate. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, as Arteta says, few weeks. Worst case scenario, potentially you could be looking at Christmas, maybe even longer. So its shoulders are really, in football, it's such a high physical sport. You're constantly needing to be in kind of these physical challenges, shoulder to shoulder with other players. It's not an easy injury to, because with like knee and muscular and things like that, obviously on the training pitch, you can, you gradually build up through rehabilitation, the strength in the ligaments or the strength in the muscles. But with like bone breaks of a shoulder nature, even less so with like a leg break or something like that, it's such a difficult recovery to manage and to estimate, because if you overdo it, it's not like with a muscle where you can kind of feel it getting tighter, etc. It's so different. And also, we don't know if the break has done any internal damage either. So as I said, it's really hard to quantify, but it shouldn't be taken lightly at all.
Right. I'm just a bit worried about that, and also the fact that we let go of Emil Smith-Rowe. Obviously, we sold him for a good amount to Fulham, and we also loaned out Vieira. So I'm a little confused if we're going to be short in midfield. Merino's injured already. Partey, we know about his availability issues. So if Partey's gone, then that leaves us with a midfield depth of Odegaard, Nwaneri, who's yet to really have much game time, and he's only 17. And then you've got Jorginho and Declan Rice, and that's it.
Yeah,
I don't feel like that's enough.
It's not, is the short answer. And that's why we needed a midfielder, and that's why we signed a midfielder. It's not enough, and we are going to be in a position for the next, let's say worst case scenario, Moreno's out until Christmas. We're going to be in a position where we need Jorginho, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Nwaneri to be our midfield. To a lesser extent, Miles Lewis-Skelly, of course, is another talented youngster that they rate exceptionally highly. It can play deeper in the midfield. But, we're going to need these players to stay fit. And one of those players is Partey, who we know notoriously has a very poor... Bruce brings up potentially, in a worst-case scenario, you could use Zinchenko, which I've always been so against the idea of, but needs potentially must at certain times. That in cup games, perhaps the League Cup, we could use Zinchenko as a left back, as a midfielder maybe, and use some of the obviously youth players. I think Bolton's a great draw for us. I think we can utilize the youth players and the fringe players for that game and be relatively comfortable. So yeah, it's the midfield's tough, mate. It really, really is. That Merino situation has absolutely screwed us, without question.
And if you look at the other options as well, I don't know, is Arteta going to think about probably playing one of the defenders in midfield from time to time? We know Calafiori can play CDM. We know Timber can as well. Like, they profile that way. We've seen a bit of Miles Lewis-Skelly, who inverts into midfield in a more CDM role. So I expect probably him to get some minutes. But overall, when I look at this transfer window, you've been asking about ratings and you've been saying how to rate it out of 10. I'd give it a solid 8, probably a bit higher than others. Apart from the goalkeeper situation, where I do think we've gotten weaker, I think we've strengthened in other areas. If we get the Sterling deal done, we've strengthened it in attack, we've strengthened in midfield. Injuries can happen. Merino, unfortunate. And we've also strengthened in defense. But it's a goalkeeper situation where I'm a bit worried if Neto has to play, in the FA Cup games, or who knows which game Arteta actually gives him. And if Raya is to get injured for any particular period of time, I think we'll be in trouble.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Thankfully, Raya has suffered one injury in his senior career, which was nearly 3 years ago, which was a knee issue that kept him out for around 10 games. But other than that, he has had a clean bill of health. So it's not like Ederson. People often say to me, I'll look at City with Stefan Ortega, and I'm like, well, yeah, but Ederson has a continual injury issue. So that's why there's more pressure on their number 2 to be, much, much better. Shanor, thank you so much for your kind contribution. Do me a favor, Shanor, and can you send me a private DM afterwards? Just get me up to date with what you were mentioning at the start. I'm very interested.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do it live on air, but just drop me some information on it. I'm curious. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, let's bring in Ben. In just 1 second, I'm going to bring in Ben. What I will do that is I have to make an apology to Greg, who left us a super chat earlier about the 50 million question of Pedro Neto and Elise. He's absolutely right. I was thinking about euros for Michael Elise with 60 million euros. It is 50 million pounds. So, Greg, I hold my hands up to you, mate. You are absolutely right. But even then, I think that his obvious preference was to move to Bayern, and the profile for Arsenal, I don't think necessarily fit. Joe says Tom might need a beverage after this show, or do whatever you'd like. I'm not going to have a beverage because at 11 I'm jumping onto TalkSport between 11 and 12 to round up whatever happens in the last stage of the window. So it's a busy evening for me. But thank you, Joe. I appreciate your kind donation. And Rich says we've added so much experience this summer. Sterling 4 league titles will be an invaluable addition for that, as well as Neto 2 leagues and Moreno, of course, with the Euros. Talking about how many honours the players that we have and might be signing have won. Here comes Ben, who is a regular contributor to our chat box. How you doing, Ben? You good? You well?
I'm good. Can you hear me, Tom?
I can, and I'm incredibly jealous of your shirt. It's the one I missed out on. You know what I'm like with black Arsenal shirts. I love them. And I missed that one, so I'm very jealous right now.
I feel like I have bad luck with shirts because everyone I get tends to leave. I think this was like a Pepe shirt, so
yeah, I had that. I've had that. I had Van Persie, Fabregas, Alexis, Walcott, Giroud. They all end up leaving. You have to come to peace with the fact, Ben, that eventually they're all going to leave. So it is what it is. But tell me where your head's at the moment, Ben.
So right now I'm feeling a bit mixed on the window. I think personally, I don't think it's been as great as people have been saying. I don't think it's a 7 out of 10. I'm leaning more in that like 5, 4, 5 out of 10 right now. Because honestly, like at the start of the window, what were like the 5 positions you would have said we needed to address to be a successful window and fully like be ready for anything next season?
I feel as though like with the because you've watched the 8 a.m. shows religiously, Ben. I know, and I've always been of the stance that this window was pretty crap, you know, like in terms of the options that have been out there. So I never feel like a 9-10 window was even on the table, like from day dot. I just didn't see it as being a possibility. However, where I am, you're a little lower than I am in terms of value. I think I'm around 6.5. If Sterling comes in, I think it's a 7. The Moreno injury, I'm not taking into kind of account because I don't think I can. I don't think that'd be fair on Arsenal, obviously, after his first session to get that injury. But I just feel as though that what we have lacked in this last 2 weeks in particular is a lack of restraint. I think we've had too much restraint in what we've done. And I feel like we should have maybe been a bit more. I was sending a voice note to a good friend of the show, Drew, of course, who was a former regular. And I really hope he comes back on. I was speaking to earlier and saying I'm on the show. But I was saying to him, I can't think of what the word is. Like, it's that lack of, like, we've got a surplus of restraint this summer. And I think it's good to have, cautious. Like, absolutely. I use that as well, but it's still not quite the word I want. And I'm going to discover it, I'm sure, at some point tonight. But I feel as though that approach has obviously done us quite well in recent summers in terms of how we've built this team, and we've not done a Chelsea or we've not done a Man United and not gone crazy and silly. But I think that maybe it's like, you know, in that whole saying of like, if a hero lives long enough, they see themselves become the villain. Like, it's almost like this strategy in a way is being so serious that it started to hold us back a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think we needed to address this season, like in this window, because for like a multitude of reasons, I kind of felt that we needed to fill out our squad a little bit with people that Arteta was actually willing to play. So with the new Champions League format, right, and with the, I guess, higher expectation that this year we actually go further in the cups and maybe like win 1 or 2, that we're looking at possibly like almost 60 games there. And with a squad size which is smaller than the likes of Liverpool and City, who tend to go deeper in those competitions, where we've been kind of dropping off in the cups to mainly focus on the league and sometimes still tailing off at the end due to like players gassing out from overuse, I felt we needed to add a little bit more of players that, you know, would actually be regular rotation, because that's something Pep has really got down to a science. Doesn't matter if you're seeing Bernardo Silva on the wing, or you're seeing Doku, or you're seeing like the new kid Savinho. He's able to give, like, Foden's barely played, Rodri's not played at all, and these are like key players for them, especially in the tail end of seasons, right? So I was really of the mindset that if we're going to be selling the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe, who I also love, hopefully he kills it at Fulham, or the likes of Nketiah, Nelson's, or whoever, who, yeah, granted, fans may love them, but Arteta wasn't really, like, they weren't up to the level, I guess, in his opinion, and they were barely getting minutes, or fringe players, that we would be bringing in people to, at least, maybe not bodies, but people that he'd be willing to play. Because then you take the burden off of your Sakas, you take the burden off your Havertz, who's looking like our only striking option right now with Jesus being injured. So that was like a main issue for me. I was just also along the mindset that we'd finished twice, 2 seasons in a row. We'd done a decent amount of like sales, well, more so recently, but like shirt sales and stuff like that. We were in a good financial position, so we could afford to, if not spend like a ton of money on a bunch of different areas, maybe like save up for one big signing in the attack, because we'd been spending in the defense, for instance, like we built from the back. And then last year we spent big in the midfield with Rice. And I guess Havertz was bought as a midfield signing initially, right? So the next progression would have been in the attack to kind of add the extra constant threat on the left, which in my opinion would also alleviate the pressure from Saka as well, because now you wouldn't have teams doubling up on him as effectively, because now there's also a constant threat on the left, so they can't, you know, there's not enough bodies. So that's something that I was really like harping on in my mind, that we add some superstar attacker. Doesn't have to be a striker, but a superstar attacker to really alleviate the stress on Saka and give us like more consistent threat going forward. Because, you know, when Liverpool won the league, Bobby Firmino wasn't necessarily scoring all the goals, right? But he was setting Mane and Salah, and they were really a cohesive unit. And going back to, like, I know people bring up the point that we scored 91 goals, and it was the most goals that we scored in the league season. A lot of those goals did come from defenders in our set piece routines, which is great. We can definitely try and continue that, but with the new rules that are being implemented, those might not be as sustainable as they were last season. You know, with any touch on a goalkeeper being a foul, we could maybe lose like 5 to 7 goals from that manner this coming season. So I thought that would have been like a good way to really close that gap, because in my opinion, the gap between us and City is not as small as 2 points. I think that last season was a really good year for us, and also like a down year for City. They did lose KDB and Haaland for considerable stretches of time. They were betting in new players like Doku, like Mateus Nunes, even Kovacic to an extent. It was kind of like
in Declan Rice and Kai Havertz, and we would have betted in Timber. We didn't have him. So.
That's a great point. Actually, I didn't think of it as much as that. But I think the gap isn't just quite as small as 2 points. Like
I think that's fair enough. I do think that's fair enough. You know, I think that there is, you know, I use the 2 points as a reference point because it's a tangible evidence, you know, there that you can see on a table after 38 games. And after 38 games, that is the best measure of where a team are in relation to their competitors, you know. So that's what we have in terms of a measure of where Arsenal are. And I think that this window, we've added a great defender in Calafiori. I think we've added a great midfielder in Moreno, who sadly, of course, has had this injury. And Sterling, should it happen, which again, there's more reports suggesting there's a real willingness to get this done. Suggestions are he's now agreed personal terms with Arsenal. Fabrizio Romano says Sterling and Arsenal have agreement between player and club in case that decides to get it done. Raheem wants to move. Negotiations are ongoing between the clubs, with Chelsea open to finding solutions. So, you know, it seems that we're edging towards a more positive place, but never say never. You never know what happens in deadline day. It could go, you know what up. So, yeah, I just think that we are short without question, especially in midfield now with Moreno injured. We're short up top. Without Sterling coming in, we're definitely, arguably, we're still to a degree short because of Jesus being out injured at the moment as well. But And if Reece Nelson goes, the suggestions that Reece Nelson still might go. I personally wouldn't let him go. Even if Sterling comes in, I'd keep hold of him. I think we need the depth. I think we need the players. But there's suggestions that West Ham might be looking at that. Also, we'll have to see. But yeah, Ben, thank you so much for your time and your contribution and for your listenership as well.
Thank you. First time, long time listener, first time caller. Always wanted to say that. So very happy opportunity.
Yeah, no, I'd love that. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and no, I really appreciate it.
Maybe we'll come back in January, but yeah.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. Lovely stuff. Cheers, Ben. Smash it. I'm just going to close this. It gets to that point in the evening where I need to close the window. There we go. Lovely stuff. Because you get to that stage where you want the window open because it's warm, but then it ends up being like a fly magnet with that beacon of light behind me. Anyway, I need to get this camera back in focus. I still haven't fixed the focus. I know people sending me messages like, Tom, you need to put the setting on this certain thing. And I'm like, I know I need to put it on that certain thing, but I just keep forgetting to do it. So I will have that sorted soon, I'm sure. Let's just quickly... I'm just checking if I had a reply to that message from earlier. I don't. It's fine. Don't worry about that. Don't worry. I'm not texting any agents or anything. Let's get Mark on, who's up next. How are you doing, Mark? You good, Joel?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. Tell me how you're feeling about Raheem Sterling seemingly on his way to Arsenal.
Absolutely horrendous, Arsenal Football Club. Absolutely. 1,000,000%. Every caller that's been on tonight, this is the most disgusted I have been at my football club in 32 years.
Really? The most disgusted you've been of a... do you remember the window where we just signed Petr Cech?
This is worse.
This is worse than that?
Yeah, because there's context to when we signed Petr Cech. There is context to that, Tom. And I don't want to go through the history of Arsenal Football Club, even the slightest. Yeah, you could ask me questions. There is context. I've always been positive about Arsenal Football Club. I love it. I felt the years of Wenger was torture, and on his behalf, I loved him. And I don't want to go through the power struggle, any of that whatsoever. But what I will say, Tom, 4.5 years into this project, we get so close to Manchester City, and rather than just pause and do nothing at all, we weaken ourselves and panic buy. Tom, I'm not doing this, honestly. And any Arsenal fan out there right now...
Other than Sterling, who's the panic buy?
Sterling.
No, but who other than Sterling? Who's the panic buy?
No, we've not... It's only Sterling. We're panic buying with Sterling. Okay. We should have paused. We should have paused the squad.
But we're not buying him, we're just loaning him.
And to Tom, I don't care. We're freeing up 350 grand off their wage bill.
We're not paying that.
No, but off of Chelsea's wage bill, we're freeing up that 350k.
What does it matter? They're miles behind us. Why does it matter?
Look, Tom, I think you'll be surprised next season. At the start of this transfer window, we had three very good goalkeepers. We had Rhea, Ramsdale, and Hein. We put one of them out on.
It was very good.
Yeah, well, I thought he was decent. He was good for a third goalkeeper. So he's now out on loan. Ramsdale's been sold. We brought in Neto, and we've got Stretford as an 18-year-old goalkeeper. So you tell me, are we stronger right now?
I think the overall squad is better equipped for this season than last season. Yeah.
So if Ray gets injured,
Moreno's injury for the record, for the injuries.
Yeah. You can't. No, you can't take it down.
I appreciate that you're not factoring that in. So yeah.
Yeah. No. You can't do that. Our defense is amazing. Our midfield is amazing. Do you know what? Even the cheeky side of it, it's not cheeky, but I do like it that Ethan is almost going to be Odegaard's backup. I love that as well.
Yeah.
So
we should be giving the minutes to him, not Vieira.
Yeah. Absolutely. We spoke about
You're
this
starting
previous.
to talk yourself out of this being the worst window ever, Mark.
No, I'm not. Not because I think. Do you know what? I think Man City are almost a wounded animal, and we were so close to them last year. Alvarez is a brilliant player. I heard another caller putting him down, and let's be serious. I would have taken him at Arsenal and without even thinking about it. Honestly, I would have. However, if we had to just paused and not sold anyone, we would be in a better place to challenge Man City. Right now, I don't feel we are. We've weakened ourselves with the goalkeepers. I'm hearing that Nelson can still do a move to West Ham, and that's why Sterling's coming in. And I honestly, Tom, I'm more worried about Chelsea's, and I know they're shambolic, but I'm more worried about what these guys could do to catch us up rather than us catch Man City. And that is why my disappointment's there right now today. I have never criticised Arsenal Football Club. Never. See, today, I'm not having a head loss. I'm just gutted. 4.5 years of doing amazing, absolutely. The job that Arteta has done is beyond words. And to stop now.
Yeah. Mark, let me respond. Let me respond, Mark. I absolutely wholeheartedly empathize with your frustration because I know where your head is. Like, I completely understand it. We get to within 2 points of Manchester City. And if let's say hypothetically, like, let's use the Alien analogy. Alien comes down, you have to describe what's happened. You know, Arsenal are 2 points behind. This is how the transfer window works. Teams buy players to make them better. And they're like, well, what did Arsenal do? Well, they kind of, and they'd be like, well, why? Why didn't they just go out and, you know, really take advantage of the window to close the gap to City when they've only brought in Savinho and Gundogan? And the reason being, Mark, that why I'm not on the same level as you in terms of my apathy, I suppose, to where Arsenal are at, is because I look at the context of this window. When I go back to the window where we only signed Petr Cech, that was a window where Arsenal were very clearly in the swell of regression under Arsene Wenger. And we desperately, just like, you know, we were losing our players. We were not signing the players that we needed. We just got in Ozil and Alexis. We'd had 2 summers of, you know, starting to spend in the market for the first time. And there was all this expectation and hubbub about Arsenal were going to go in and get that next world-class player next summer. And we just got Petr Cech. And that summer was such a low of rightful anger and rightful frustration about Arsenal being on the precipice of turning a corner and going in one direction. And instead, we went down the other pathway, and Alexis eventually left, and Ozil fell out of favour, and we then, obviously, Wenger left. Whereas now, the context of this window, as you point out, is, yes, a frustration that we've not gone for the dream players this window to just get us to over the line, because Arsenal wanted to do that. Whereas that window back then with Cech, there was no ambition in that window at all. Zero, zilch, none, nada. They did not. There was a lack of awareness, a lack of ambition, a lack of all of the things that you're feeling right now about this window. That was genuinely there during that summer window. But this summer, they had the ambition. They wanted to sign 2 forward players in particular. One was Šeško, and the other one was Nico Williams. And despite, because they didn't get them, unlike previous windows where we've missed out on Martinez and got Zinchenko, or missed out on Caicedo and got Jorginho, or missed out on Mudryk and got Trossard, they've not been convinced that the alternatives have been good enough until it's too late, which it is now, and they have panicked, I agree with you, and gone for Sterling online.
I agree, Tom, 1,000,000%. But to go back to that, when you see Man City have regressed, in my opinion, this year, if we had a pause, we were so close to them, just paused any sales.
Question. I know the answer to this question. Who would you have signed? Quote, Osimhen.
Tom, honestly, see if he ends up at Chelsea, I think that I'm going to find it out for a month.
I mean, I've not been across the Chelsea stuff because I've been across Arsenal, so you'll probably be no better than me.
No,
does it look like he's going to Chelsea at the moment?
Yeah, massively. The Saudi side that he was going to, I've not seen it for the last. Yeah, they could only bring in one more foreign player, and they were in talks with Tony and Osimhen. And the last I seen, Tony was doing his medical, etc. The only option for Osimhen right now is Chelsea.
Delaney 10 minutes ago in the Independent tweeted saying there is still a huge gap between Chelsea's offer of wages to Osimhen and what the player wants. Well over £100,000 per week.
Exactly. So if we take Raheem Sterling off their wage bill, even for a year on loan, they'll be able to afford.
You're frustrated that we might take Sterling, and that then gives them the gap to go
Yes.
into Osimhen. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think if that's what you're frustrated about, I get it. Obviously, we weren't ever in the market for Osimhen, so it's not like we would have got him. But you're concerned that the going for Sterling will give them the gap to therefore go and get Osimhen.
But it's also the goalkeeping situation as well, Tom.
Convince you otherwise to not be annoyed at that, because that is annoying. Like, you know, and that is annoying. Like, so, but yeah, I just do. Have I convinced you that it's not as bad as that other window? Because for me, that other window was genuinely deplorably unforgivable of a window.
No, Tom, do you know something? It was, but there was a power struggle in our club. We'd obviously spent like more than 100% over building the Emirates. Wenger had to go through that pain. We had no money, Tom. We had no money. So
we spent on Ozil 2 seasons before that, and then the season after that, we bought Alexis.
But there was a power struggle.
We spent 118 million quid or something, like 100 million quid the year before. Like,
yeah, but there was a power struggle was still going on within the club, Tom. So at that point, I just looked at it in context. I'm trying to look at a context, and it was bad. These were bad times. But this, for me, is more frustrating. It's not as bad a window, so you have convinced me. However, this is more frustrating for me because we're so close, Tom. I've said this before. We win one Premier League title, Tom. We could win the next 5. And we've stopped. I feel we've regressed. And now we're panic buying with the Sterling. I mean, Edu, what are you doing?
I think that what the respect I have for your opinion is it's not coming from a place of like the crazed Arteta out bandwagon. It comes from a place
absolutely not.
Like frustration that we're not taking that extra step to give Arteta the tools to go what it takes to get there. So that's why I really respect where you're coming from. It's just I don't quite align on some of the level of frustration. I don't. So you, just to clarify the Sterling point, you'd rather we didn't sign anybody than get Sterling. Just because I need you to be able to justify that to me. Because after being very irritated that we're not doing enough to win the league, I don't see how you can have that point of view and simultaneously think that it's okay, therefore, to add nobody just to stop Chelsea from perhaps opening up their wage bill. You know?
Okay. Right. I spoke to Man City fans when Sterling was at his best, and I've only done this a couple of nights ago because we were linked. And the response I got back was he gave up at Manchester City, become lazy, was not doing everything that he's meant to do. Hence the reason that Man City pushed him over to Chelsea. Chelsea, Shambhala club, what they are. Why are they trying to get him off the wage bill? Exact same reason. Now we're taking Raheem Sterling at 29-year-old, 30th December, as a winger. By the way, as a winger, they do lose their legs a bit quicker, a bit more with age. So, would I prefer Reece Nelson or Sterling to make my window any better than what it currently is? No, thank you. I'll keep Nelson.
Well, you're not gonna, because there's breaking news at the moment that Fabrizio Romano just tweeted that Ipswich Town are in advanced talks with Arsenal to take Reece Nelson on loan before the.
This is. Tom, I'm sorry,
I'm with you here. I think loaning Nelson is so silly. Like I can't get my head around that. We're already short in attack. We needed a forward, and now it's loan Nelson.
That means that Sterling's coming in. Sterling's
definitely. I don't want to say definitely, but it looks like Sterling for me. From just reading transfers of just from my understanding of them, all the noises right now point towards Sterling is going to happen. Unless something changes.
Tom, can I ask you one question? Yeah, Mikel Arteta at the end of last season says, "Don't be satisfied." Mm-hmm. The next comment that we get out is Edu saying, "Be patient, you will not be disappointed." That was the night before.
I need to address this. This quote was the night before. Pain of my life.
This is the night before the third kit is coming up.
Oh, this quote is mad from Edu. Like, I think he just... this obviously was before the Mikel Merino deal for starters. He said it to a couple of fans, apparently. And then my good friend, James Green at Sky, has said this on Sky. And I was texting him earlier, like... the fact that you said that, like, and took that, I was so annoyed at him. And it's not his fault. He's a journalist. He's doing the right thing. He's saying what he's but it's just... It's just been the bane of my life, that quote. I think you're right to bring up Arteta's quote of "Don't be satisfied," because, and as I say, I've sat here and you've listened to the show, you've listened to my opinion, you've listened to my position on this. You know that I don't think it's acceptable to have done just what we've done. We should have done more this window. I've said that. I just think that, especially if Nelson goes, I can't quantify that in my head how that makes any sense. It's so you can see I'm getting irritated. It makes your effect on me, Mark. Clearly, what you're doing.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry.
No, you're all good, man. I'm just not quite there in terms of that level of apathy. I think it's a good word of kind of where you are with that. But I guess we'll see at the end of the season, won't we, Mark? We'll kind of just see how we get. We'll see maybe in a few months' time, let alone the end of the season where we are.
Just for the listeners, it doesn't mean I don't love Arsenal Football Club. Yeah, it does not mean that I do not love Arsenal Football Club. It means opposite. My frustration is because
I ever think I'll question.
No, but just anybody else.
Don't worry about
I'm
that.
very passionate. Yeah.
Don't worry about that. So, at no point should anyone have been questioning. They may disagree with your point of view. I've disagreed with some of your point of view, but at no point have you've put across an opinion which is clearly passionate. That is clearly, in my opinion, not in line with like where I'm at. But at no point should anyone ever question your love for the club or how much you care about the club, because that at no point come across that it's fabricated or artificial. I empathize with your frustration, Mark. I really do. Like I think that what some of the stuff Arsenal have done this window is really questionable. So, and we have a right to question it. That's why I have people on to say it. But thank you, Mark, for your time, mate.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, mate. Lovely stuff. We are nearly 2/3 of the way through. And we've had some fantastic callers. What is quite good, and you don't get this perspective, because as the host of the show and the host of StreamYard, I can see the people waiting down below and their frustration as people talk is just, I wish you could see it because it is quite something. We're going to go through some more callers in a second. Just welcoming everybody else that's joining us. There's 2,500 of you watching across all of our platforms, which is great. Still way more of you on Twitter than YouTube, which I do appreciate. But obviously, YouTube is the place to be. So get into our comment sections, get into our chat box, and get your thoughts in. And just I want to stress this point again. If you disagree with what someone's got to say, that's absolutely fine. But please be respectful about how you disagree with it. Like, it costs nothing to be nice, but it costs you a little bit of your profile and your reputation and I think your soul, really, to be just mean and horrible for no reason. So, yeah, just please do respect other people's views. And if you disagree with it, put it across in the right way. I'm going to get Aaron on next, who looks like he's going to pull his hair out any second. Aaron, how you doing, my friend? Oh, I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? For some reason. Aaron, go into your audio settings. Just check you got the right microphone selected. I'm going to bring you on the next one, okay? Just while you get that sorted out. Let's get Daniel on, who looks equally as stressed as well. How you doing, Daniel? You're good as well, mate? Take yourself off mute and talk to me.
Oh, God.
So you think we've been excellent this window? That's the feeling.
Yeah, spotless.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
I saw you when I read out the news about Reece Nelson. I think you were banging your chair quite angrily.
Yes. Yes.
I empathise, man. I don't get it. I don't get that at all. I find that really strange. Not your actions. I find the loan really strange.
Yeah, like let me just clear out my hearing aids. Loan.
Yeah, loan. To be fair, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
A loan to a Premier League club where he may play week in, week out could get us a really good fee next year. That's the only thing I can think of positively.
Yeah.
However, that's hugely outweighed by the massive downside of us not having any more attackers. Because if Sterling comes in and Nelson leaves, we're in the same position as we was before.
And also, one thing that I want to bring up quickly, how long does it take to complete a medical? Like this, and
it's not just that. It's media stuff. It's media. Trust me, as someone who's like, it gets it.
Take this long to do media stuff. it shouldn't take that long.
No, but it's just decision making about when they announce things. It's really odd. I've had like
10:59.
Yeah, we're going to be at 10:59, and Nketiah is still not going to be a Crystal Palace player.
Right, and I'm also annoyed because I only found out. Well, I also found out about the whole Marino situation that's going on with him.
So annoying.
And I want to make it. Well, have we still got the receipt somewhere?
It doesn't work that way, I'm afraid. Doesn't work that way.
Like, I'm joking, obviously. Like, I'm just really well. I'm like you. I'm really gutted because I've not really seen him play. I wanted to see him play for us. We probably won't see him until maybe Christmas, depending. Well, basing on what I heard from what you said earlier, I think it's going to be like probably Christmas, like knowing our luck. Overall, this window, I'd rate 4 or 5.
Okay,
4 or 5, like, because
I was at with Sterling coming in, I was at a 7. If Nelson goes, it's definitely a 6 for me. Like, it goes down a rating if we let Nelson go for me. I think I just can't fathom that. I can't quantify why we would do that.
Literally on the literally 3 hours before the deadline. Yes, there's deal sheets, which will extend the deadline for that specific deal to be made. Like I think you get an extra 2 hours to do the deal, which that's how I think we'll get the Sterling deal done. And I'm more annoyed at the fact that it's another Chelsea player. Like,
I wouldn't be annoyed about that, mate. I mean, Jorginho and Havertz have been successes, so I don't.
Like it's just every year now. I'm
going to be blunt with you, Dan. I couldn't care less where the players come from. It's what they do for us that I care about. I don't care where they come from. I really don't. I get when Mark was out with his frustrations about us freeing up.
I mean, at this point, regarding the Nelson deal, we have to take Sterling. Like we have to at this point. I don't like it because it's massive wages and to provide cover. Like, I don't know how much Sterling is on. Probably about 300-400 grand a week, possibly. I'm not sure, but I just think it's a hefty wage to move from our bench. No, from their bench to our bench. I'm not saying that
he's not even on their bench at the moment. He's not on their bench at the moment. But you know
what I mean.
There is a part of me that is excited about the Sterling deal. There is a part inside me that is excited about it because, as you know, I'm an optimist, which helps in life. B, Mikel Arteta has worked with the guy and knows the guy.
That's my fault.
And as well,
don't
worry about that, man. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
No, that's right. I'm taking care of it now.
It's okay. Don't worry. Arteta's worked with the guy. There's something. 100+ goals in 300+ games for City. I think it's obviously not as equal return for Chelsea, but I mean, you look at Havertz's numbers for Chelsea; they weren't great. So there's just part of me that thinks that there are some players out there that when they're given a fresh lease of life in a new environment, in a club that backs them, with a manager that supports them, you never know what might happen. And I don't agree with Mark that I'd rather sign no one than Sterling, because I think adding Sterling is important. The biggest frustration where I'm at with you, Dan, and why I empathise with your slamming your sofa is, the Nelson thing's really got me. I can't make sense of it. But Dan, I appreciate your patience as well. Final thoughts before you jump off.
Because today the Discord was popping off earlier, and Andrea, I did say to you on Twitter, like, yeah, Discord's popping off. You might like.
Yeah, I'm to keep my eye on these guys in our Discord server now.
Yeah, I'm not extreme views either way. Like, like, to be honest, up until today, I was like relatively calm, like about everything. Like, I was just like, meh. But the only way that and I said this to you just before the season ended last season, the only way that we would regress too much is if we fell outside for whatever reason outside the top 4, and that's when I would let Arteta go, regardless of signing a new contract. Like, and like, but like, if we don't win the trophy this season, it's fine. But as long as we see some form of progression in some form, but it's just like if we fall outside the top 4, then fine.
My advice to you, Dan, and to people who are feeling a similar way to you is that, and I know it's really hard, and I'm not a professional therapist, so don't take this as professional advice, but I get the sense from a lot of people that there's such a build-up of anger at already such an early stage of the season amongst so many fans, and transfer windows do that to people. I get it, but. And I talk about this on shows all the time. Like, one of the best things I ever did was detach myself a lot more from the sport in an emotional sense, because it's so much more important. There are so many other things in the world that are more important than this. It doesn't feel like it. And I remember when I was at school, I would say things like, you know, it's not just a game, like to anyone that was saying, but the reality is it is just a game. And it's just a thing we enjoy as part of our life, and it should not dictate our mood so intensely and so heavily that it bleeds into the rest of what we do. And I just feel like there's this swell of anger that's building up around the fan base at an early stage when we're 2 wins from 2. We've beaten Villa, who we didn't beat last season. We have added players to the team. Yes, we're making some strange choices on deadline day, but we are still looking like we could potentially add a player who knows what they're going to do. You know, he's going to get 99% of the fan base are going to back the hell out of Sterling if he comes and be excited to see him succeed. And I just hope that.
I hope he does too. But
of course, when tomorrow rolls around and the game comes around and the transfer window's over, we can refocus again and we can just talk about the football rather than this mess of a transfer window. But Daniel, thank you for your time and your call.
Thank you. Cheers.
Better every time when you come on, mate. You've been fantastic. Thank you, fella. Appreciate it. Lovely stuff. Let's keep going. We are 2 hours in, which means we've got just under an hour to go, which I think means we've got to the part of the show where those that are waiting to come on, there could be a small chance you may not go on. So I'm going to say that to you now, because I can't promise you. But we have an hour to go of today's show, and I have to hop off at 10 because I'm going to give myself an hour break before I have to go and I say like it's a chore. It's not. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to jump on TalkSport at 11, but I'm giving myself an hour break between this and TalkSport at 11. Aaron, I promised, was up next because hopefully he sorted out his microphone. Aaron. No, I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? This bothers me because I want to give you the opportunity. If you've got headphones, go and grab them and go and get them, and then we'll get on you on the next one. Okay, cool, lovely stuff. Elliot's up next. Familiar face to our call-ins. How you doing, Elliot? You good, Joel?
Tom. How are you?
Not bad, mate. To be fair, not bad at all. I'm a bit warm, but other than that, I'm all right.
Tom.
Yes, mate.
We meet again. In these.
I feel like you're going to come for me on something I've said in the past that you're going to bring up again. I'm curious.
Well, Tom, to your credit, you did get Nketiah right. Remember, we had that little, tete-a-tete. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did eventually. Well, he's not out of here yet, is he?
Technically, he's not gone yet, so there's still time to mess up.
He's
yeah. I'm told that there's no problems with that. By the way, I did another check a second ago. Should be no.
Okay, well, he goes. Tom, let's talk Turkey once more. It's looking bad, Tom. It's looking really, really bad. I mean, this team was supposed to, finally overtake Man City in terms of league position and finally free the world from the tyranny that it has once enraptured itself for the last 4 years. However, we are here again to see a window that has been totally underwhelming. It is hoped and prayed for that the likes of Raheem Sterling comes in and lightens the mood that little bit. But I think
breaking news: we've signed Neto. That should lift your spirits. We've signed Neto, mate. Come on,
we've signed Neto. This the incredibly the goalkeeping juggling club has signed Neto. How many goalkeepers has it been now since Arteta's been in this position? At least 8. I'd say 7 to 8.
Let's see if we can name them quickly. Ramsdale, Raya,
Leno.
No, Leno was signed under Emery.
Oh, okay, fine.
Lucas Nygaard, Thomas Setford, Runarsson.
Yes.
Neto.
Now, yes.
That's 6.
6.
Who are we forgetting? I'm sure we're forgetting.
Raya.
Did we say Raya? Did we forget Raya?
I don't think we. I think we forgot Raya.
We did. Yeah, 7 with Raya.
Yes.
There must be 2 more. Surely there's 2 more. Matt Turner. Yes.
Matt Turner. Yes, indeed. Matt Turner. What about the my guy from Australia there?
Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan. Yes, that's 9. 9 lovely
goalkeepers in 5 years. Tom, you hear what I'm getting at, right? We care more about goalkeepers than we do about strikers. That's abundantly clear.
Well, we've had better strikers than we've had goalkeepers, so that's probably why.
We've had better strikers than goalkeepers, yeah. But again, I think Arteta has a distinct aversion from strikers. I don't think he likes them he's not too keen on them. He'd rather sign a winger than he would a striker. He'd rather sign a midfielder than he would a striker. It seems that Arteta wants to do away with and get away from one of the greater needs in our squad, which is a 20 goal scoring striker. Now again, it's via happenstance that Havertz has come in and done a relative job. Now I don't know how he does full time, but clearly he wants him full time because the likes of Tony, the likes of Osimhen, the likes of Gyökeres have been shunned to our amazement, and 2 of them have been sent away to Saudi Arabia, which completely stuns me. It completely stuns me how these 2 have escaped the clutches of not only us but the top 6 in general. I mean, Tom, I'll give a rating to this window. If it wasn't for Sterling, it would be a 4 out of 10 because we've had needs up front. We've had needs. We had needs on strike. We've had needs on wing that have not been addressed. When my Bangladeshi friend came on and he gave this window an 8, I was stunned. I was absolutely floored. But he's entitled to his opinion, and so he's entitled to it. But an 8, where did the 8 come from? I don't know. The Afghani judge missed that dive. I tell you what. Anyway. But he's entitled to his opinion nonetheless.
Sorry, my head's gone for a spin there. I think with the ratings, it's obviously very subjective. It's very
subjective. I get it.
It depends how you rate a window. It depends how you look at a window, and I look at a rating going from kind of 5 being the middle, and if you go above a 5, it's because you've done more good than bad, and if you go below a 5, it's because you've done more bad than good. And I think the things that we've done are good. The sales are very good. The signings that we have made in Calafiori and Merino, besides the annoying injury, are good. Sterling coming in is a necessity at this stage of the window. It's okay as a signing. It's not a bad signing in my opinion. It's an okay signing.
Well, we could have had better wingers, to be fair.
No, we could have signed
aside from Nico Williams. I mean, Pedro Neto was there.
The options in the forward line have not been, for me personally. I know some people wanted Gyökeres, some people want Osimhen. I couldn't personally justify the expenditure on those players. but the loan of Nelson brings it down for me if it goes through, because that's baffling to me. I don't know why we would do
Stunning.
that. Because if you look at our bench, right, from the weekend, Arsenal Aston Villa was obviously Jesus is out, injured. Nketiah is there on the bench, and Nelson was also there. So from that bench that we had, which was Waneri, Jorginho, Zinchenko, Kivior, Nketiah, Ramsdale, Calafiori, Nelson, Trossard. Now Jesus replaces Nketiah and Sterling replaces Nelson. But at the moment, Jesus isn't fit. Sterling hasn't obviously come in yet and won't be on the bench tomorrow because he hasn't been registered in time for the deadline to be in tomorrow's team, because that was midday today. And obviously, there is potential that other players like Partey could get injured, and Timber could have another issue, or Zinchenko can get injured again. You know, there are issues in there, and we're still weak. So I don't know why we would allow Nelson to go on loan. That's the big, for me, it could be up there with the biggest question mark we have. So I really don't get that one. Elliot, I really want to get through as many callers as I can in the last hour, so I'm going to let you go. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Tom. Again, I'm glad that you are now a critic of the club in one way, shape, or form. But again, it's great to see you here. And but again, it's justified with this window this year. And again, you're doing a wonderful job. And may you keep it up as long as possible, sir.
Mm-hmm. Lovely stuff. I appreciate it. And I'll speak to you soon, I'm sure, on another phone.
Cheers, mate.
As well. Thank you, mate. I'm just going to bring this microphone close to my mouth, because I think Rob's pointing out to me that it might be a little bit quiet, so I'm hoping that that's better. Let's go to our next caller, which hopefully is going to be an Aaron with a working microphone. Third time's the charm, as they say. So let's see if this works. Aaron, he's putting the new ones on. Is it going to work? Nope. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. What I'm going to tell you to do, Aaron, and this is the last time we're going to be able to check this, I really want to get you on, because I know you've been very patient. If you go into the settings and the audio tab, your microphone selection's got 5 little grey dots. When your microphone works, those little grey dots will light up green as you're speaking. So you'll be able to test whether or not your microphone works. If it doesn't work, this ain't going to work. Okay? So try some other headphones, try something else. Otherwise, I've got no solution for you, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. Cheers, Aaron. Right. Tom's up next. Let's go to Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hey.
Good, you well?
Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Yes.
Hi. Well, it's actually been quite a train. I mean, it's crazy, because as I came on, I mean, first of all, I didn't expect such a line of people. I mean, I came on an hour ago, and I thought I'll be probably one of the few, because you know how it usually works. But yeah, it's crazy. So
it's been that busy.
So my feelings have changed while the show came on, obviously because of the transfer window.
Mm-hmm.
I must say that at the beginning I was down when Sterling news seems to been off. The deal was being off, because I thought that it's very, very shocking or the most disappointed idea that I have at this window is the alternative factor, or the fact, like what you said a while ago, and I thought the same thing, that the idea of not planning for a backup, because I mean, I'm a realistic. You know me, and obviously the Sesko, we tried the Seshko, we tried the William. I mean, we can respect the fact that they weren't available. Obviously, the pricey ones, as Gyökeres, the ones that I don't like Tony. I mean, I can understand those things, but unlike previous windows where we usually, even if we don't get the first target, there were targets that we could have get, that we usually have a plan B. We have like the least, as we say, and we work pretty well, you know, if we go with Trossard, Jorginho, Zinchenko, all those. So I'm a bit underwhelmed, because it felt a bit like the Wenger days, where, I mean, you were talking about one target, we were talking about the Benzema, and once Benzema is not happening, then it seems like there's no alternative, and then we always left shorted. So it's a bit underwhelmed. Then obviously the Raheem Sterling came up, and I was a bit more okay with that, because I can live with the fact that as a lot of people said, I think people underestimate him. He did had, as people said, 18 GA, so he's not as people say, he's not as bad as he looks. I know Chelsea would love him to kind of drop stinkers here, like they were hoping Havertz did. And,
in a weird way, they probably don't. They probably want him to do quite well, so they can maybe sell him in next summer. I mean, he got 10 goals and 8 assists last season.
Yeah, in the fact now that he's actually going to be a loan, so yeah, that makes sense as well. But I mean, I can imagine that I can already see him having a hat trick against them in the next game we play against them.
Like, he can't because it's a loan, so he can't play against them.
Right. Right.
You can't play against your parent club if you're on.
No. I haven't thought about it like this. Yeah. It's so that's a bit disappointed, but never mind. But
we're signing a player that can't play League Cup games because he's cup tied in Neto. We're signing a player that can only play against 18 of the 19 Premier League.
And they're both the backups, and they're both the backups which should be playing. But
yeah.
Look, there's a lot of thoughts. I think, first of all, regarding the front line, I don't think it's bad as people say. I love the fact that people now, when they get mad of the fact that we don't get we don't have an attacking option, they decide to include Vieira and Emil Smith-Rowe as the strikers. When they say, like, we didn't sign a striker and we let go of Nketiah, Smith-Rowe, and Vieira. And the last time I checked, Vieira never played a forward. He barely can play a right forward. And Smith-Rowe, I mean, we know he usually was the failure in the 8, and he never. I mean, he played like once a false 9, but it's crazy when people start to compare them as forwards, which they never played in the system which we had. So, I mean, I think we're good with the fact that we replaced them with Merino, which obviously, with our luck, he got injured. So, I mean, it's just bad luck. It's the timber all over again. I mean, you can have what you can do with that. And I think Waneri will get his chances. By the way, I don't know if you mentioned it in the video. Today was the under 21, and we didn't have Ethan, Waneri, and Setford playing.
Right. Well, Setford is at the moment. Setford is the third choice goalkeeper. So
as well. So I expect. We might expect seeing Lewis Kelly on the bench.
I think Setford will be I'll be on the bench tomorrow.
And I think Lewis Kelly as well, because I mean, obviously with the Merino injury, we don't have anyone.
And Sterling can't play. So
yeah, exactly. So that's what we pretty much and they didn't play today, all three of them. So I do expect them. So which by the way, I really hope Lewis Kelly. I know he's not as first team as Waneri will be, but I do hope he's get more chances that it seems to be at the moment. And I hope Marina, the kind of the Marina injury will help him kind of flourish. Now, talking about the last half, I mean, since the Rhys Nelson news, which
this will be the last point, Tom. So, what do you think about Nelson's loan?
It's not as baffling. I mean, it is
baffling, mate. I find it baffling.
It baffles and not, because from one perspective, I mean, it's like, okay, I mean, it's not surprised that Arteta kind of allows Nelson go, because it's not really trust him. I mean, okay, he played like 10 minutes in the last game, but we've seen it through the years. I mean, even though, unlike Nketiah, he did show some impact while coming on from the bench.
Yeah,
he doesn't play him. He didn't play him as much as Nketiah, so he obviously doesn't trust him. So
I hear that. My issue is that we have 6 forwards, and
exactly. But
I
on
think
the other
needed
side,
a forward, and we're now letting one go despite bringing one
in. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I would let go. I mean, if we like, there was at one point that we were talking about bringing Sterling and maybe Tony, which I know you love. I mean, I thought at that point that your head will probably explode hearing that Tony will come in, but exactly. But if at that point, if we add another, if we had the 7th attack, if we add 2 attacking players, then I would understand the idea. But like you said, now keeping us at 6 forwards, I don't know. Maybe we are missing something regarding the youth players. Maybe there's a surprise. Maybe we'll see Waneri more as a right wing, as a right as well, covering for the right. that's the only logical explanation I can see for letting Nelson go. But yeah, it's quite baffling, the idea. I mean, at that point, at least at that stage of the window, letting him go, it's at such a late stage. But
yeah,
I will give credit for the fact that once Nelson leave, even though it's unfortunately unknown, we actually managed to kind of sell all the players where we kind of expected to be sold. Which
yeah. I had
which
agreed.
People
Our
don't
sales
give
have
enough.
been good. Like,
yeah, which people don't give enough credit for.
Yeah, I personally think the Ramsdale fee is way better than I thought we were going to. I didn't see us selling
me
him
too.
for £25 million.
Me
And I
too.
know, or £80 million plus 7 million add-ons. But
by the way, the 18 is, there's a reason it's 18 because apparently if it was more than 19 million, then Sheffield will get about a 20% sell-on clause.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so I read somewhere there's some of the more good one of the more trusted ITK said that there is that they made it on purpose.
Not an ITK. No.
No, I read it. No, it's sorry, it's not an ITK. It's, I think, I don't remember who said it, but I read somewhere that they said that it's there is an idea of the 80%. It's not. It's that's why they made it such a. So I can live with the window. The Nelson idea. I mean, I think there's an idea behind it, but we're still not understanding of it, and hopefully we'll get the idea of it at some point regarding maybe a youth player that will be promoted, or Nelson or Wanyeri playing there.
Yeah,
but
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
There's an hour and 40 minutes left. But Tom, it's a pleasure to share the screen with you again, and thank you for being so patient as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Lovely stuff. Right. People, can I get a drum roll, please? Because for the fourth time this evening, we're going to see if Aaron's audio is working.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, come on, you Gunners.
We can hear him. Love stuff. Oh, that's the highlight of the show, that is. Aaron, we've got you. We can hear you. And
Awesome.
for the fourth time, lovely stuff.
Yeah,
you
just
better
so
be good now. No pressure.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Where are you joining us from?
Boston, Massachusetts, over in the
Lovely
US. Yeah,
brilliant. Tell me what you're thinking about this window.
So earlier today, I think it was, I saw something on Twitter or something. Someone said that like this is like the worst transfer window ever, or it was like horrible or
Mark
something.
said that earlier on the show.
yeah, and I don't think it's that. I think without Sterling, it's like a 5, like you said, and with him, it's a 6 or a 7. I trust Arteta. We've seen what he's done with players. But I think for it to be like a horrible window, I think you have to start the window with a team that needs transfers, and I don't think that was really Arsenal. And we brought in a couple players that I think will improve the team. We're getting Timber back, and like you said, I don't think Marino really affects how good the window was. I mean, the only thing it really affects in the forward line is that Havertz would have been freed up to focus on striker, I guess. But yeah, that's what I think. That's gutting. Marino getting injured is gutting for sure.
Yeah, of course, the Marino injury is just that's the worst thing about this window for me. It really is the worst thing about the whole summer. Is the Marino injuries? It has taken such like the wind out of the sails, I think, from the good stuff that we were doing. What do you make of this Nelson loan that's got me all flustered?
I agree. Like, I don't agree with it. Like, even if we bring Sterling in, I don't think it would be right. We don't know how Sterling is going to perform. I think Reece Nelson has a pretty high ceiling, honestly. I think he could be a good player. And I definitely want to see what he can do this season if he gets some minutes under Saka. So yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that loan goes through. Obviously, how many minutes he plays for Ipswich. Hopefully, a lot. Otherwise, what on earth would have been the point of doing it? But really, really difficult. Aaron, You smashed it. You got on and you did well. We finally made it work. So thank you for coming on, mate.
I appreciate it. It's great to be here. It's better than 3 a.m. our time. So
yeah, I'm sorry about that. I can't. I
right.
can't change the 8 a.m. show.
That's all right. Yeah.
But I appreciate all of our Western listeners that do catch up or tune in at a crazy o'clock in the morning, whenever it is. Thank you, mate. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
Have a good one, man. See you later. Love that. Our American listeners are so passionate about the club, as are obviously lots of you around the world. But as someone who's been out to the States and you've been to Chicago and witnessed the passion that's there, and it's great. And I'm desperate to go back next year if I can convince the missus to let me. But we'll see. We'll see if it works. Right, let's go to Rob. The complete other side of the world now, going to the Kiwis. How you doing, Rob?
Kia ora, not too bad. How are you going?
Good. Give me a I hope it's not too sensitive question, but give me a dog update.
Yeah, she's had a bit of a downturn I'm not getting much sleep. I've had about 4 hours tonight. So yeah, I think it might be maybe the next few days. It's just very
I'm
hard
so sorry, man.
to make.
I'm really sorry about that, because a lot of listeners actually messaged me asking about yourself and the little one as well. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your kind thoughts, everyone.
Of course, we're thinking about you. Yeah, let's switch gears and Arsenal.
So I'll try and run through the things, because I know you've got like plenty of people, I'm sure, on. So I'll try and bullet point things. So first of all, the Nelson. So it's probably in reverse order. The Nelson thing is crazy to put him on loan. Like I've looked at our squad, and we've got 3 in goalkeeper, no problem. We've got 8 in defence with Tierney and Heaven as backups, no problem. I worry a little bit about the midfield. We've got 6 there with Salah and Lewis Skelly as backup. But then when you look at the forwards, I think we've got 6 with no backups, and that well, maybe Charles Saga Jr., but he didn't even play in the preseason, right? And that 6 includes Nelson, and obviously it also includes Jesus, who I don't think we can rely on to be available throughout. So the concept of Nelson going on loan, I mean, I take your point. Get him in the shop window. Maybe we can get a good fee for him. And to be fair, he played very few. He's played so few minutes. So not just last season, but over the last, 3 seasons. But it makes me wonder about whether I wonder whether the reason the Eddie transfer hasn't been made official yet is if we're going to let Nelson go on loan, that's 5 forwards. I mean, do we need to hold on to Eddie then in that case? I mean, I think Sterling would be great. It makes me also wonder, do we just keep on negotiating with Chelsea until they get to the end of the window, and then they're like, we've got 733 players and
no, it's 734.
Yeah. Well, Sterling's the extra one, right?
Oh,
so
okay, yeah. So it will be,
let's just rip up his contract and get him off the wages. I don't think that's a bad negotiating technique, because I mean, it's not just about him being on the wages. It's also about what's it going to be like for that squad to have all these people that know they're not going to be playing, giving it that in the background. I mean, I don't know. Chelsea's a blinking car crash, bin fire from my perspective. So quickly through that, I think I mentioned it a number of times last season. I mean, when we didn't get Šeško, I think we should have gone. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but I think we should have gone for Cyril Guirassy. He went for
Guirassy, yeah.
He went for 15 million quid, and he was the second highest scorer in Europe behind Kane last season. For 15 million quid, I mean, that's a drop in the ocean, right? I mean, it's crazy. 15 million quid is a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
But here's my hot take. Right, here's my hot take.
Let's end on the hot take.
We're 10 million positive net in this transfer window. We're clearing out, the dead wood of the squad. So here's the hot take. We're stockpiling cash. We're making available squad places ready for the end of pre-January, when the lawyers get their acts together and the 115 charges comes down.
Alleged breaches.
Well, yeah.
Using my legal knowledge now.
The charges are shown to be, valid.
Sure.
And Man City are relegated, and presumably in many of those contracts, there's sub clauses that say if we're relegated, then we're free agents. The contracts are. So then it's like Arsenal are the only ones in January that have got this pile of cash, and we can take Haaland, we can take Foden.
I love this optimism. I really do. I love it.
Just imagine it. Like all the other teams, that they've spent all their money, they've got nothing spare, and we're getting all these players for free. We can pay 300, 400, 500 grand a week in wages because it won't matter. And we'll just run away with it, mate.
We'll see. We'll see if you're hypothetical. And I want to stress that was a hypothetical scenario for any lawyers listening. But yes, Rob, I love that. And as I said at the start, sending you all the well wishes in the world.
I really appreciate that.
This community's got your back. So
thanks, bro.
Thanks you for tuning in. Pleasure. I hope we speak soon.
Bye.
Have a good one, mate. Lovely stuff. Always brilliant to speak to Rob and get a catch up. Let's imagine that. All those free agents. Can you imagine Erling Haaland on a free? Goodness gracious. Yosef's up next. He's been very, very patient. Then Jack's after him. Let's go to Yosef. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
Good. Keen Bean, you've been in the chat box saying, like, when am I on? Tell me. When am I going to come on? You're on. So we've made it. We've got you on.
Exactly.
Where is your head at?
I think it's been a little bit disappointing, to be fair. And the reason that it's really disappointing is I think Arsenal lacked three main things. I think up front, we lacked a bit of pace, apart from Martinelli. I don't see anyone that has that explosive pace. And since Saka has gained some of the strength, I think he's lost about a bit of the pace. That's one. Two is I don't think we have players that finish chances off. They're not cool in front of goal, our players. Havertz is a very good striker. I really like him, but I don't think he's quite clinical enough and cool enough to finish the chances. And I feel like there were a couple of players that could have changed that. I think the most sensible one being Neto. Pedro Neto would have been the most obvious one. I know he's injury prone, but
he's more than injury prone. He's got a subscription to a hospital near you.
True. But I think he could have really made us title challengers.
Sure.
But overall, I think although it was disappointing, I don't think there were players out there that could have changed it. I think Osimhen. One thing I don't agree with you, Tom. I am a daily listener to you. Is that
thanks, man.
When you compare Osimhen to Havertz, I think they're quite different players. I think Osimhen would have given us the raw pace. Finishing wise, they could have similar stats. But I think Osimhen could have given us that raw pace. But we're hearing 100K apart means like 500K, 600K. We don't know what the wages are. So that's silly. I think Tony would have given us that cool in front of goal. I know Arteta doesn't like him, but I feel like he would have given
Arteta's not the only one.
A lot of people do not like him. I know it. But overall, I'm okay with it. I think the other thing that disappointed me is the Ramsdale fee. I know 18 million.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would have loaned him out. We would have had 3 more years, a good season at Southampton. I think his price would have bumped up. Same with Reece Nelson. I'm happy with the squad. I don't want Nketiah. I don't want Reece Nelson. I don't think we would have used them. I don't think they would have had any impact on anything that we would have done in the season. So I'm okay with it. I think the only thing that's disappointing is two main things. One is if Arteta doesn't win it this season, it starts to get like every season you start thinking right now, unless we're like 10 points ahead of City, I wouldn't believe it because we haven't won it yet. So that's the one thing that holds me back. And the final thing is, I don't think we should compare ourselves to City. Yeah, City just did Savinho and Gundogan, but they've won the title 4 times. So you can excuse them for doing that. We should have ambition in terms of like where we're going, because we haven't had any lack in the past 20 years. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a measured. Yosef, I think that's a measured way of looking at it. I appreciate your listenership, by the way, tuning in. I do think that the Osimhen Tony thing is something that I'm never going to see. I can never quantify that one from an Arsenal. I can never see it happening. I just can't picture it for starters. I just couldn't picture it ever happening. And it seems with Sterling coming in, well, I say that hypothetically, it's moving in a positive direction. It seems, this deal, that we will get a forward in, which is obviously what we wanted. It's just maybe not the forward that people wanted, and I still think it's better than that.
Yeah, I think he's the better of all of the options. Even with Case, I think I was 50-50. Yeah, apart from Pedro Neto, maybe Michael Ollis, maybe Eze, I think he was the better one.
Who do you feel will play more games this season, Sterling or Neto?
I think Neto will play more games. I think
he's got to stay fit. That's kind of the
if he stays fit, he'll play more games. Because Mudryk is not going to get games. Mudryk is not going to get games. I feel like
it's not just Mudryk. It's obviously you've got Palmer, you've got Nkunku, you've got Jackson there, you've got Mark Guy, whoever his name is, there as well. I'm sure there's others. Madueke. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of players there.
There's a lot of players there.
So interesting.
But I think Chiesa is also another case. I think Chiesa could have done well. Yeah. But
yeah, no, it's a bit of a no-brainer at that price tag, to be honest. It's a difficult one to say turn down to, for sure. Yosef, thank you so much, mate, for your patience, first of all, and of course for your time this evening. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Of course, no problem at all. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. I have now removed the link from the StreamYard, from the chat box, because those that are sitting in here right now, we're going to try and get to as many of you as we can. I can't promise it will be all of you, but we're going to try and get to as many of you as we can. But from this point, anybody else joining the call, sadly, we're not going to have time to squeeze you in. So I've got how many people on my screen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in 25 minutes is going to be tough, but we'll see how it goes. Jack's up next. Jack, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm good. Can you hear me, Tom?
Can hear you loud and clear. Lovely stuff. First test completed.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Tell me what your thoughts are, man.
Overall, I'm actually buzzing.
Buzzing?
I actually
haven't
am.
heard that word this evening.
I actually am buzzing. And people, I'll get heat, I'm sure, in the chat. I'm not going to look at it, but it's fine. Yeah, because I have to have I am an optimist. And I think you are also an optimist. And I want to focus on actually Sterling. I think it's so much more than just bringing in Sterling and people saying, washed up Chelsea, that's all we're getting. These players are sucking at Chelsea because Chelsea are a terrible club. We right now are a fantastic club. And we, over the last 5 years under Mikel Arteta, have built a culture and a discipline where players like Sterling, like Havertz, come in and they actually thrive. We've seen it with Havertz. And I think it's a lot of confidence players, right? So Havertz, all the people that are saying, Sterling's an absolute crap signing, probably said the same thing about Havertz. And I think most people would be like, I was actually maybe a bit wrong there. And I'm not saying this is a given. It's absolutely going to be that way. But I'm an optimist. And I think, Sterling could actually be a fantastic signing. I think he's better than Reece Nelson. I think he's an upgrade in that regard.
Yeah, without question, he's better than Reece Nelson. Yes. But I still wouldn't have loaned Reece Nelson.
I know. And I'm with you on that. I think from a club standpoint, I'm there as well. I'd be like, man, for club-wise, we would want to keep him. But on a personal level, I can see why Nelson's like, to be honest with you, bringing in somebody else and to be the backup, like I want, at least give me that. And now you're bringing somebody ahead of me in there. I've got to go get football. I can understand why he's probably pushed to get out the door. And I think, being a lifelong servant of the club, the least we could do is kind of respect that from him. As difficult as it is from a club-wise, strategy-wise to accept that, I personally I understand it, although I don't love it. But yeah, I think we've done such hard work in the last 5 years that players like Sterling can come in and can actually make a real impact. He plays on the left and the right as needed. He hasn't, although he's 29, he hasn't lost pace. He's still a rapid player. And so I do agree that we lack a little bit of incision, a bit of pace. And I think that he'll bring some of that to our forward line. And then the rest of it, Marino, that's a dagger to the heart. But again, optimist, 4 weeks. Let's say he's back in 4 weeks and we're not thinking about it again, and he's in it. And it might have taken 2 weeks to get him
never
really
be a journalist
anyway.
with that,
I know I could. That's fine. I love Arsenal and I love where we are right now. I'm just so happy. If you told me this is where we would be from 2019 to now, I would have been like, are you kidding me? That's absolutely incredible. So that doesn't mean that stunts where we want to go. We want to go that next step. And I do think that Sterling is a better replacement. I do think overall we have a stronger squad now than we did when we ended last season. And it might not be as big of a gap as we were hoping for. Maybe we were hoping for a 50, 60, 70, 80 million signing up top to really make us stronger. But we're stronger than we are. 2 games not conceded. We have such a solid base to build on. Havertz, Sterling, to come into the team, and it's actually kind of a forgiving culture that we have right now because we have such a solid back that we can afford to miss a few chances to help people find their feet. And I think Sterling's going to take a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months to find that.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be brilliant.
We'll wait and see on Sterling. It's going to be interesting if it happens. First of all, it's not yet done. We're still waiting on news for that. We've still got to wait for it to get completed. It's moving in the right direction from the sounds of things, and hopefully we'll get an update. I doubt before we finish this phone in, but we should get an update within the next hour or so. Jack, thank you for your time, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it, Tom.
Thank you. Lovely stuff. Appreciate your patience as I do the rest of our callers. We're going to move swiftly on to Ryan, who's up next. Let's go to Ryan. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel? Take yourself off mute and I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from North Carolina in the United States.
Lovely part of the world. Tell me what you think. Thoughts are at the moment, mate.
I think this is I'll say 5 now because the Sterling's not done.
Sure. What if Sterling's done, hypothetically?
6. I think 6.
Fair enough. I'm with you.
I've agreed with a lot of your points. I think we've entered this window with high hopes. It sounds like Arteta and Edu did the same. And it just hasn't panned out with the Euros and injury. I mean, Kieran Tierney was supposed to leave, and that didn't happen. So I think it's just a short window. And being realistic, we want to keep the wage budget down. So to go out there and ship the boat for Nico Williams to try and entice him in and blow up our wage structure is not smart.
Okay.
So I think, with what we have and what we've done, I say it's average. I don't think it's Peter Cech, as you've reported earlier, that bad. But I understand where people can be mad about not going out and, I think Simon you had on earlier who was very mad about all the, why can't we talk these players into coming? I mean, I look at Zubamendi. He didn't want to come because he loves his club. I respect that.
Great example.
You can say that about any of them. Sesko wanted first team. He wanted to play more. We can't offer him that. He's not ready there. He's not I would have said Victor Gyökeres would have been my first choice in a striker department, but that's me being passionate. I saw him playing for Coventry. I would have gone out there and gotten him before he went to Sporting, but we didn't. And now Sporting, slapped a big tag on him. So to try and get him out of there for anything close to that number is ridiculous. And I respect our club for not pulling a Man United and just going and buying at the big price tags or a PSG. So I can respect everything that they've done. I love that, as you said, they've sort of been like they've regressed in being proactive. Yeah, I wish they would have been a little bit more to sort of forecast the market. Like, okay, PSR is really a problem. Players aren't really moving this summer. Like, we really need to nail our targets, which I think they sort of have. But I think the market has sort of dried up too in that regard. A lot of players are much more focused on game time. And if the right side, who's out playing Saka right now that's available, that's not more money than what we would have to pay him? There's not many. So
who's going to want to sit on the bench and be back up to Saka?
Correct. I think
yeah.
I think that's where I draw the line at it. Like, we have to, it's no different than, buying a car. If you think of small business and stuff like this, you have to be knowledgeable of what you have on the table. And then I think of last December when we were all in for Mudryk, and I'm glad we didn't pull that trigger. But at the same point, like, it could have been so different if we did and it changed, but it didn't. But we were looking for somebody on the left side, and I think we still sort of are quietly. That's, I think, the real push is the left side, and maybe moving Gabriel centrally. I don't see that, but I mean, I think there's more time for him, but I think this is kind of his make or break season. I know he had a good season 2 seasons ago, but I think after last season and just the mix up in the left 8, that was sort of his downfall. But I think we've done enough this season to address that with the Calafiore. I mean, that was seeing that come out of sort of left field. I mean, I know it was talked about just before the Euros, but he was on nobody's radar up until like maybe a month before the Euros. I know he was at Arsenal in December, or it was in January, but I think their scouting department's ahead, and I think they have the right people picked and tapped up to where they can make moves when they need to. But I think it's just a very hard market right now with PSR and financial fair play and all the rules that are changing.
Yeah, and I think you're raising really fair points, Ryan. I do, and I think that very measured and grounded, which I can appreciate as someone who's also attempts to be in that bracket. So yeah, thank you, Ryan, for your thoughts, and thank you for your patience as well.
Sure,
I do appreciate it. Thank you, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You do the same. Thank you for having me. First time caller, long time listener.
Yeah, there you go. Love it. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 callers, and we've got around 10 minutes. So this is how it's going to work, because I think StreamYard actually cuts out at the 3-hour mark. So it's actually out of my hands. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to ask the next people questions. I'm going to get you on, and you're going to say your feelings about the window in one monologue, and then we're going to wrap up that call, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to get everyone. And I want to get you all on because I know you've been waiting very patiently to have your say. So be ready in these next 10 to 15 minutes, because you're going to be on to give your say on the window. So Ronnie is up first. Ronnie, floor's yours. Take it away.
Yeah, so the window is like 6.5 out of 10. So it's been fine. But yeah, the Reece Nelson deal, which I thought was like not giving much sense, but at last, if like Sterling is coming in. So what I think is that if Nelson is going for a loan and then he picks up his value, so we can sell him for a profit, and that would be good for us. Plus, if we see that if I compared the squad sizes of all the teams like City and Liverpool, so all of them like us had similar strength of players. So like if injury happens, so it could happen to any team, to City or Liverpool. So it doesn't matter much. But the thing is that Sterling, he has worked with Mikel earlier, so I think that might also play in the reason that we are going for him. So yeah, I'm optimistic, and I just have one gripe with Mikel, is that he should give the Haaland products like Ethan and Miles Lewis Kelly more time, because Paris, PSG has Zaire Emery, Man United has Mainu, and Barca has like Bernal or like Yamal. So like we have that talent, and he should use them, and especially like in the wing, I think he can use them. So yeah, that's my take on the monologue.
Good points. Well raised. Thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate it. And I agree with a lot of what you said as well. So thank you, my friend, and thank you for your patience again. It is appreciated. Thank you, Ronnie. Nunan is up next. Let's get Nunan on.
Here we go.
How you doing, man? You good? You well?
I'm good. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, mate. I can
hear
you.
What have we got here? We've got the Ozil. No. You see
I
it?
love that, man.
What was that? When was that? Last minute of the window?
Yeah, mate. Last minute of the window.
And here we go. It could be Sterling. Who knows?
Tell me what you're thinking.
What am I thinking? Be positive. Our first 11, brilliant. Sterling, last minute, I'll take him. I'm just, confused. I'd say I'm confused. I'm just a mix of emotions all day. I listen to your show at 8 o'clock, Tom, You're brilliant, and you
Thanks,
know,
man.
it's like all day today. I've been working, but you know, in and out, listening to different channels, different podcasts, and think, what are we doing as a club in terms of catching up with City? But at the same time, I don't want us spending willy-nilly money on players that are not going to, you know, contribute to our squad. But I don't know, frustrated.
Confused, frustrated. Yeah, I think they're emotions that a lot of fans are feeling, Nunan, to be honest. I really do. And I think that, you know, as I think I said, I rounded up earlier in the show and I said that I think we've shown too much restraint at times during this window, and we should have been a little bit more adventurous than we have been. And that's a part of who we are these days. You know, we're very meticulous, we're very strategic in what we do, and we stick to our plan. And if the plan doesn't work out, we sometimes pivot if we see there's an obvious candidate. But I think this window has not presented those to Arsenal, and as a result, they've been reluctant to jump. And maybe
but Tom, I respect the club. I respect the club making that decision in terms of them not going out spending money on Osimhen or Tony. They've done their due diligence, and the history in terms of the players they brought in. People mocked us about 50 million for Ben White.
Yeah,
they mocked us for, you know, look. We've made mistakes, but I feel we need to trust these guys. They've got people behind the scenes that know a lot more than we do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend. He works for Leicester City, and it's more than when a player joins a football club. It's not just about them playing on the pitch. There's so much more that goes on behind the scenes in terms of their adaptability to a club, how they're going to fit in. And I respect in terms of what Arsenal do, and I don't want them to go out and spend millions and millions on a player that I don't think is going to fit into a club.
Yeah, and I think you're fair to think that. And I respect the club as well for their stance, because it's got us to where we are. I just hope that it's does enough to take us that little extra step. But Nunan, thank you so much for your patience, first of all, and for coming on as well. Thank you for your time. We've got two more callers left. We've got King and Sean. Sean's got his camera on, so I'm going for Sean first, and then we'll finish up with King. Sean, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. I love the hoodie, man. It's one of my favorites as well. And looking good. Thank you for your patience and for tuning in. What's your feeling?
You know, I was feeling a little better before the Mourinho injury news broke, but I think generally as a fan base, we've just got to remember it's not 8 years ago. You know, we're in a much better place than we were back in 2014, 2015, and this team has so much potential. And I think we just got to put our trust in Arteta and Edu. These guys, you know, they know we're losing some depth here with Nketiah leaving and potentially Reece going off too. But that means there's something in the works. We just kind of have to give some trust to him. Maybe it's in January. I think there was a caller earlier who was talking about Manchester City. Maybe it's next August. But I think trusting Arteta and Edu is the only thing that we can do, because they deserve our trust after the way that they've handled the past 2-3 years with this club.
Yeah, I think that summed up really well. And it's going to be interesting to see if next summer, because I looked at 2025 and I've always thought 2025 was kind of going to be the year of the really interesting transfer window. And I've been saying that for a number of years, not just this summer. So very intrigued to see what happens in 2025, but I'm more intrigued at the moment to see how we get on this season. And I'm still feeling really positive about it, even though I know that the day's not worked out maybe as what people expected. But Sean, thank you so much for jumping on and for your patience, mate, as well. Very much appreciated.
Thanks, Tom. I think Sterling's going to work out well too. Have a good one.
Indeed. I hope so. Thank you, Sean. And finally, to complete our 3-hour phone-in show this evening is one of our regulars. It's King. How you doing, King? You good, Joel?
I'm good. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, very good, man. You're looking well. How you doing?
Yeah, it's much better now.
Good stuff.
Finally reunited with the family after 9 long months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Where have you been reunited out of curiosity? Is it back
in Sweden now.
In Sweden now? Oh, amazing. Oh, awesome. How is Sweden?
Oh, it's good. Honestly, it's been a good summer, so I can't complain. Honestly.
Brilliant. That's fantastic to hear, mate. I'm so glad for you. Talk to me, switching gears. Talk to me about your thoughts. You got 2 minutes before we have to wrap up, but yeah, go for it.
I'll try my best. So the positives of the window for me is the players that we have sold and sent on loan, and also getting Caliafiore in, securing Moreno. I think shrewd business. The negatives of the window is obviously we have not get enough players in. I think we are short. I think even if Sterling comes in and Reece goes out, I think it's a big risk. And the reason why it's a bigger risk this season than before is because there are more games. And if you look at our September schedule, there's a lot of games in there. And then you have a lot of internationals. So it is a big ask for Arteta to put him in this situation with so much expectation from fans, from media, from players. It's a bit unfair, but the situation is what it is. I still think that Sterling is a much better option than Reece. And I think I didn't count Reece as a squad depth because I don't feel like Arteta trusts him as a squad man. And the reason why I say that is that the only time we seem to see Reece play is if we are 3 or 4-0 up, or there's an emergency where 2 or 3 wingers are out and he have to play him. He is not like a Trossard or Jorginho or Kibio where if the player in your position lose their form, you're in. So for me, it's good that he's gone. It's unfortunate that we are in a situation where we had to go for Sterling. I would have much rather seen someone like Lookman or Gyökeres or Anthony Gordon at the beginning of the window. I think he's a very good winger. I think he's someone who can play on both wings. He's very direct and very creative. Obviously, he would have cost money, but I think he's worth it. I think every season the trajectory of Gordon is upwards, and I would have liked to see someone like Eze. It doesn't have to be him, but someone that can come in and add creativity, who's more similar to Ødegaard, just in case Ødegaard needs to rest. We have him, but now ESR is out, Fabio Vieira is out. It's a lot, but again, it is what it is. I think Arteta is one of the best managers out there right now. I think he's shown that he can challenge the best manager, who is Pep, and hopefully the players themselves have developed enough with the tactics that we can survive up until January. Fingers crossed we don't get any more injuries, because if we do, then it's going to be very hard. But I think that will summarize my view on the window. I would probably rate it as...
assuming Sterling comes in.
If Sterling comes in, it's a 6. If it doesn't come in, it's a 5. And just because we have let go of so many players and not brought in enough. It's more of that. It's not that I don't rate the players that we bought. I think they're good. And the fact that the second goalkeeper is cup-tied is another problem. Yes, Sterling can't play against Chelsea, but he can play in every other game.
Every other game, yeah.
So it's fine. Yeah, and that's my view on it. We just have to hope that Jesus comes back fit soon. And again, like, we are still a very good club. We are one of the best teams in Europe. We will challenge unless something unforeseen happen. And I think the reason why so many are upset is because, Arsenal have been that almost team for many times. We had a few seasons with Wenger where we were challenging, 08, 09, I think 2015 as well. The 2006 final, we've been in this stage since we last won, where we've had, squads that are so close, and then we've failed to do the, one player short or 2 players short. And I think a lot of fans were optimistic that this window we were going to add attackers, and we were gonna go and push City with the new reinforcement in attack. I think that's probably why I'm a bit not so
underwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. Underwhelmed.
Yeah.
That's the perfect.
Yeah.
As I said, it's not like a meltdown where, oh, Edge out, Arteta out, it's over. There's no reason for us to play. Like, I think people also have to realize that this is one of the best Arsenal team we've had ever in the Premier League. Point-wise, if you look at goals scored, goals conceded, chance created, the structure, we are an amazing team. And with the belief from the fans, we've seen how important it is for the players. Like, the window is over in an hour. Regardless of what we wanted, we have the players that we have. Let's support them, back the team, give them the energy that they deserve. Because at the end of the day, the role of a fan is also to support, even in hard times, when you're uncertain. Let's give them that. Let's do our role so no one can look back at the fans and be like, oh, but it was so quiet. And then let's see, the season we've started, 2 wins, no conceded. We went to one of the toughest places that you can go to in the Premier League, and we won 2-0. And last year, we got 0 points. So let's do what we can do and hope for the best. And also be excited. Football, sport is supposed to give you love. I've been in a situation where, private, it was tough. 2023 was the worst year for me ever in my life. And if you take like debt away, sick away, I don't think I will ever have a year that's worse. But when you put yourself together and you realize that there's also more to life, and the club that you love is supposed to give you something, you can also just look at it from another angle and learn from it and make the most of it. We got fantastic player, we got fantastic manager. Take that in. Don't be too sad because of football. It should give you something to your life. That's important. And I think the first time last year, it was a game Arsenal lost. And my wife told me, I didn't even know that Arsenal lost. And that's where I knew that I've matured. And
King, I'm so glad that you're my last caller today, because I think actually you provided such good perspective for people on. Again, I you know me, I stress this point all the time, that there's just so many far more important things to lose your head about and to stress about and to be mentally affected by than football. It's so secondary. Like, football's so secondary, even tertiary to our lives and the things that actually matter. So I'm so glad that you're my final caller today, because I think you smashed it. So thank you, mate, and a genuine pleasure to speak to you again, as always, my friend.
Always. Thank you so much for having me on, Tom.
Enjoy Sweden, man. I hope it treats you well. I really do, and keep in the loop and keep me updated.
For sure.
Have a good one, bro. See you later. That's it. What a way to end it. King smashed it. Love that. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to refocus. Come on, focus on me, camera, please. I know what to do. I haven't done it yet. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in, called in. It turns out StreamYard can go longer than 3 hours, but I can't. So I'm ending the show here. You've been absolutely awesome. As a chat box, as a family, as a community. It's the longest show that we've ever done in the 8 years that I've been doing this show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I expected real, genuine anger and animosity and stress, and I know we got that in some small portions, but actually I was surprised by how much calmness there was tonight from our listeners. I was surprised how reasonable people were. I think in even more than me in some senses. And I always kind of look to myself as very much what's the word? An optimist, yes, but like at the extreme end sometimes of the spectrum. And I just think that when it comes to where we sit now, and where we are now as a club, we expect a lot more. And I think that this window has been, it's been a disappointment in the end. I think it's not unfair to say that we've not disappointed. We have definitely disappointed in this window come the end, and we should have done more. It seems, and I hate the fact I'm finishing this show before the deadline's actually over and before the Sterling situation is resolved, because it looks, and I might end up looking silly, but it looks like that is going to happen. In which case we do get a forward in. I can't make sense of the Nelson loan out. I just think that it's mad to me. I can't. I really struggle. Maybe I'll be proven later on why we've done that. I don't know why we're doing that. I really don't. It really does. You know me. I'd really try and bring sense and objectivity to what Arsenal do, and I try to explain things to people about when they can't see it and can't see why the club have done something. I really try and, I go into the depth of trying to explain why they do it. But the Nelson loan has absolutely stumped me, and I cannot. Maybe it's, as Rich says in the chat, maybe it's Nelson has pushed for it. Maybe he's seen the Sterling coming in and he's gone, I want to leave. I've got these offers. Please let me go. I don't want to stay. Maybe it's him. Maybe that's the reason. In which case, it's tough, isn't it, to say no, especially when you know he's not going to play much. So I guess that could be it. I think that we are in a better position than we were at the start of last season, because where we are now going into tomorrow's game, which I cannot wait. I'm going to be at the Emirates, obviously, tomorrow working. I'm going to be there from just after 10 o'clock in the morning, covering the game, which means I'll be shooting off from our 8 a.m. show. 8 a.m. shows carry on even after the windows close, people. So if you've made that 8 a.m. show your routine over the past however many weeks, it continues and doesn't stop. So don't worry, that's not going to go anywhere. And I think we're in a stronger place as a team. I think we're better prepared for this season than we were last season. We could have been even more prepared if we'd have done some more business, but sadly we're not seeing that. The Moreno injury is gutting, absolutely gutting. And I'm so sad about that. Hopefully we see him back soon. Hopefully it's not too serious, but it doesn't sound great, which isn't perfect. We've got to pray that some players stay fit, like Partey, for instance. We need to hope that he stays fit. And it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, genuinely. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and listening. And I will speak to you all tomorrow morning, bright and early. If you're not done with this face, however, for tonight, I am going to be on TalkSport between 11 and 12 this evening, talking Arsenal. At some point between 11 and 12, I'll be on TalkSport. So if you can access TalkSport, I'm going to be over there. So I look forward to hopefully seeing maybe some of you in the chat. If there's a chat, I don't know what the format is, to be honest. I just know I'm doing it. So yeah. But thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening on catch up if you listen back to this. And drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the morning bright and early at 8 a.m. Have a fantastic night. And as always, up the Arsenal.